Leon shook his head at the short man's surprised inquiry. An anomalous object capable of communicating with animals certainly did not exist, but he had just acquired a badge. You have obtained your first pet? Successfully activating the black iron level badge Poop Scooper. Poop Scooper. Because of keeping a pet in the city, a caregiver must regularly clean up pet waste. Equipped effect, your rapport with your pet has improved, allowing you to understand each other better. Advancement route, if you continue to care for your pet for over a month and keep it healthy, this badge will automatically advance to the bronze badge pet owner. Hidden trait, no need to equip. Your affinity with animals has slightly increased. Looking at the gleaming Poop Scooper on the panel, Leon was more determined than ever to earn more badges. Of the 13 badges he currently possessed, most did not have direct combat enhancements, but they all provided excellent support effects. Even without high-level badges like I Am the Demon or Practitioner that directly enhanced anomalies, even a seemingly trivial black iron level badge like the Poop Scooper could be used quite effectively when paired with the right anomalous object. But using bombs for now was out of the question, too dangerous. Glancing sideways at the dressing mirror, Leon was startled to see young Ha baring its milk teeth, gnawing on a whale oil bomb. He quickly made it give the bomb back. It sure had husky lineage, already trying to tear things apart at such a young age. Flinging bombs at opponents right under their noses through Mirror Dog was powerful, but this little husky was too small. If it threw things in the wrong place, it would be disastrous. Technical skills like precision bombing should wait until it grew older or the Poop Scooper badge advanced, giving Leon more control over its behavior. You've just met, but you already understand each other a bit. Looks like you two really hit it off. Unaware of the recent scare, the short man weighed the returned whale oil bomb in his hand. Looking at the sleepy young Ha in Leon's arms, he chuckled and handed the bomb to Leon. Although you probably can't use eyes or water surfaces for transferring objects, mostly just mirrors, since you can communicate with the little guy, this thing is not entirely useless. At a critical moment, it could at least act as a trump card. Take it. Come find me when you run out. Just keep it in the mirror world normally, and don't bring it out. Activate it ahead of time before using, and it'll explode 5 seconds later. Thank you, Senior. Leon was pleased to hear the short man's words. He took out a small mirror gifted by the other man, aiming it at the whale oil bomb. He then gently tapped young Ha's behind. Woof! Accompanied by a lazy dog yawn, young Ha yawned itself into the small mirror, helping Leon store the whale oil bomb. It didn't come back out, instead lying down directly inside, and soon soft snoring could be heard. This little guy must be tired. Peeking into the mirror at the little pup sprawled out asleep with its paws over its head, the short man smiled and rhythmically tapped the small mirror in Leon's hand. Woof! Lady Lisa's crisp bark sounded. Leon looked down to see the large golden retriever also enter the small mirror. After casting a complex glance at young Ha, it settled down, barking twice more at Leon. Lisa says this little fellow is a bit naughty, so please be patient with it. Also, after translating Lady Lisa's dog talk, the short man pointed to the 2 dogs in the small mirror and said to Leon, if the director sends you to Rose Manor for a rescue mission, let Lisa show you the way. She's well acquainted with my friends. She'll stay in your mirror for the next couple of days. Just tap the mirror when you need directions. Oh, and take this too. The short man spoke woof twice towards the mirror. After listening, Lady Lisa nodded, walked out of the visible area in the small mirror to search, and soon returned with a small, palm-sized bed, placing it in Leon's small mirror. The director mentioned you have a great affinity with demonic abnormalities, so take this too. Looking hesitantly at the high-value monster under the bed, rated at 8.7 on the Leon value scale, the short man patted his chest and generously told Leon, since you called me Senior, I must act the part. Plus, given the number of anomalous objects I have, this one is nothing. Just take it. Then I won't be polite. This generous senior first gave a dog, then a bomb, and even a bed board. Leon couldn't help but feel a warm fuzziness in his heart. The director, although mischievous and a prank-loving drunk, always looked out for him, standing up when it mattered. Senior Emma too. Although very cautious to the point of being annoying, she taught him valuable lessons, solving his problems. Now there was Senior Jerry, who was exceptionally generous. Although partly due to the connected party badge, he'd met him and given him so much already. There were so many good people in the department. Grateful, Leon glanced at the short man, unsure of how to repay him at the moment, and instead promised, "Senior, although I'm not very good at combat, I am fairly confident in investigation, interrogation, and gathering intelligence on anomalous objects. If you ever need help in this area, you can count on me to help." Got it. That's the promise I've been waiting for. Looking at the grateful newcomer, the good senior outwardly waved it off multiple times but couldn't help chuckling inwardly. This time he was so generous not only because he liked the kid but also to seek future assistance. The ability to appraise anomalous objects was rare, and when he found more good stuff, he'd definitely seek him out again. So rather than seeking help at the moment it was needed, being generous now was wiser. Moreover, it shut this guy up, as many of his possessions were borrowed from other branches. He originally thought the kid's ability to discern anomalous objects and their costs was impressive, but it turned out he could even determine where items were borrowed from. Thus, the original compensation was insufficient, and the extra benefits would serve as hush money. After bidding farewell to the overly enthusiastic good senior, Leon did not immediately go to Rose Manor to rescue anyone. Instead, he returned to his office and picked up the sheep head that he hadn't seen in days. On the day of the Ryan Blood Night, after he was captured while exhausted from maintaining his disguise, everything except the Holy Spirit pendant he wore was confiscated by the police department, including the black goat and the witch's broom. However, it wasn't long before the Purification Bureau demanded them back, and they were returned to Leon's office. The black goat, which possessed soul vision, had already noticed it was back before Leon even went to the director's office. The moment he picked it up, it, having held back for quite a while, couldn't help but ask, "So, have you cleared your suspicions?" "Yes." Leon took out the large case issued by the Bureau and checked the sniper rifle that Senior Emma had delivered. He then placed the sheep head on the case, maintaining it while having a private chat through the connection between their souls. "Things are fine for now. Both the Bureau and the Kingdom have concluded that Ryan Blood Night was the work of Bobby Lane, and no one currently suspects me." "That's good." The black goat let out a sigh of relief upon hearing this, and then seriously reminded Leon through encrypted communication. "But you can't relax just yet. After all, a Duke-level noble has died, and it's not enough for just the Kingdom and your branch to acknowledge it. The investigators from the headquarters also have to agree that what you did is completely over." "I know, but aren't the people from headquarters still not here yet? So I'll just work like normal and behave normally. The more normal I act now, the more confident I'll appear when the time comes." After chatting with the black goat for a while, Leon finished maintaining the firearm, organized the case, and then knocked on the small mirror. Although young Ha in the mirror was still sleeping, Lady Lisa was awake and with a bark helped him put away the case. "Huh?" A creature from the mirror world. Recognizing the small mirror, the black goat couldn't help but express surprise. "What kind of favor did you do Jerry to make him willing to give you this dog?" "It wasn't that. Given Lady Lisa, it was the smaller one beside her." After briefly explaining the interaction between him and Senior Jerry, Leon gestured twice to the big golden retriever, asking her to pull the sleeping young Ha out of the mirror. He then rummaged through his cabinet for some folded shopping bags, first stuffing the black goat inside. When he was about to put young Ha in, he hesitated, thinking it might not be very secure. He then found an old piece of clothing kept in the office, cut off the sleeves, tidied it up, and placed it on top of the black goat's head as a cushion. He then used the two cut sleeves to wrap around its sharp horns, making a windproof and warm mobile kennel for the puppy before putting the soundly sleeping pup inside.
"No."
"You can't be serious." Initially not understanding what Leon intended to do, the black goat became furious Once it heard the soft snores of young Ha coming from above its head and realized the situation. I am a great demon, and you're using my head as a dog bed? You! During those days when we weren't back, the Bureau collected a sheep's offal. After covering the puppy with a small handkerchief, Leon looked at the suddenly paused black goat and, imitating the director's manner, smiled with squinting eyes. Although it's been taken away for testing, the director opened it and saw a sheep's stomach with an evil aura belonging to a near-god-level great demon. So, what were you about to say again? I was saying, I actually really like small animals, especially dogs. Yeah, I particularly like them. Seeing Leon, who seemed to have inherited a particular characteristic from a certain red-haired woman, the black goat, caught in its predicament, immediately became docile. After cursing silently, it couldn't help but ask with some confusion, Leon, didn't my heart say before that my stomach should be with the owner of Charles Department Store? Why has it suddenly been taken by the Purification Bureau? Because the daughter of the owner of Charles Department Store was kidnapped. He asked your stomach a question about how to save his daughter, and your stomach told him to deliver itself to the Purification Bureau. After explaining the situation briefly, Leon tied the shopping bag tightly, then carried both the black goat and the puppy in his left hand and the broom in his right hand as he left the office. So, does my stomach have the ability to answer questions? If you pay the cost and ask it a question, it will provide an answer. After listening to the detailed story, the black goat was puzzled. But this doesn't make sense, right? My stomach should represent greed, the utmost desire, so what does that have to do with answering questions? The director didn't say, but I guess having something to ask might itself be a person's most intense current desire. Following the black goat's lead, Leo speculated and said, don't overthink the ability part for now. This anomalous object was handed in by our bureau, and no other branch has the right to argue. Besides, I'm the one in our bureau with the highest affinity with demonic abnormalities, so your stomach is most likely returning to me, and I can study it then. So you have to work hard at it. The black goat said worriedly. Generally, anomalous objects acquired outside of tasks won't be directly distributed. You need to apply with achievements or exchange them for other anomalous objects. You've been in the Purification Bureau for too short a time, and your achievements aren't significant enough. If someone else exchanges it first, that'll be a problem. The director has mentioned this to me. Since it was the boss of Charles Department Store who delivered your stomach, she didn't have Senior Jerry save the person directly. Instead, she arranged for me to handle this task to give me the capital to compete for this anomalous object. As Leon and the black goat discussed how to quickly exchange for the sheep stomach, they arrived at a familiar building. After identifying the Secret Investigation Bureau's sign, Leon carried his items and walked briskly into the lobby. Hello, how may I help you? I'm from the Purification Bureau. After taking out and handing over his credentials, Leon touched the bandage he had taken from the female prisoner, opening his mouth with a serious expression. Is Isha in your bureau? Her full name should be Isha Hill. I have some matters to discuss with her. Look, that man is the one little Isha is seeing. Oh, where? Point him out quickly so I can see. Over there. The one talking to the receptionist, wearing an old coat, with black hair. That's the handsome guy. Handsome? Well, he is quite handsome, but he seems a bit skinny, doesn't he? Little Isha ranks in the top 3 in close combat in the department, and she's in great shape. If they end up together, can this handsome guy handle it? Oh, is this something we should be talking about here? Why not? What I meant is, what if he can't fight Isha and gets bullied? What are you talking about? I meant the same thing. TSK. I think you're thinking in a different direction. How typical of married people with different thoughts. So what if I'm thinking differently? Aren't you all thinking the same? The woman seemed to be getting anxious after being teased. She stomped her foot and gestured with her hand. This handsome guy doesn't look very sturdy. Just a twist of those long legs little Isha has around his waist would probably... run. I see you all need a good scolding. After chasing away the colleagues hiding in the stairwell, joking around, the woman who had been leading the banter yelled before taking a deep breath and carefully straightening the messy part of her clothing. She then walked over to Leon, who was waiting at the reception desk, feeling a bit out of sorts. "Leon, you came to see me. Is there something you need?" "There is something, but it's not a big deal. Big or small, just say it. I've been busy to death these days, sitting in a chair for more than 10 hours a day. Get to the point." All right then." The voices of a group of women chattering away in the stairway were already loud, and given that Leon's contamination value was as high as 2.6, his physical functions were much stronger than that of an ordinary person, so their banter certainly couldn't escape his ears. Initially, he wanted to pretend he hadn't heard anything, but seeing the female cop's slightly reddened earlobes, along with her shy demeanor, actually made Leon feel a bit awkward as well. After subconsciously glancing at the female cop's smoothly lined long legs, Leon coughed lightly, pushed the women's vivid descriptions to the back of his mind, and took the initiative to express his thanks. "Actually, the main reason I came by was to thank you. If it hadn't been for you persuading your father, I'd probably still be stuck down there for a few more days. Oh, and about the hospital bills. Oh no, there's no need to repay that money." Always so assertive, the troublemaking rebel was rarely this soft-spoken in his presence, which made the female cop quite pleased. She waved her hand and, biting her lips to suppress a smile, said generously, "Even though my dad hasn't had a salary these past 2 years, he's still a high-ranking official, so we have some savings. We don't need to spend extra on food and lodging. So, your hospital and medicine bills are just trivial to us. Don't worry about it." I wasn't planning to repay you," Leon said a bit embarrassedly. "Our purification bureau has a special nature of work. We often face danger, so expenses in this regard can be fully reimbursed. So, could you change the name on the bill to mine?" "All right, I'll change it when I get off work." After agreeing to Leon's request somewhat speechlessly, the female cop wriggled her toe inside her shoe forcibly, then slightly turned her head and asked shyly with wandering eyes, "So, you just came to thank me and have me change the bill? Is there nothing else?" "Of course, there's more." Hearing her words, Leon couldn't help but feel a bit delighted. He then touched the plague-infected blood band in his pocket and solemnly said, "I wanted to see that prisoner you escorted before, alone, without any bystanders. Can you arrange that?" Surprised to hear such a reply, the female cop was slightly stunned and then seemed a bit upset, pouting before nodding. "I mean, it's possible. The biggest case previously was the assassination of the princess, and I might not have been able to arrange a solo visit. But since the most crucial case now is the Ryan Blood Knight, the priority of the assassination case has dropped significantly. We might not even need a note from your director. Anyway, come with me upstairs first. I'll go ask the director. As long as I can see her, that's good. Hearing the female cop's words, Leon couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, under the covert glance of a group of secret police, he followed her into the stairway with anticipation. The plague-infected blood band obtained from the female prisoner had both corrosion and healing abilities. When wrapped around a living target, it could strip the target of health and cause rapid decay. If used correctly, it could also quickly heal injuries below severed limbs. During his convalescence days, Leon seriously studied this bandage's abilities and found that paired with the Holy Spirit pendant, which gained power through trading flesh and blood, it was an abnormal perpetual motion machine. In future encounters with anomalous objects like the Heart of Ambition, which manipulated thousands to besiege him, Leon could trade flesh and blood to enhance the Holy Spirit pendant while using the plague-infected blood band to extract health from enemies to heal himself. Using this fighting-to-sustain fighting method, he could keep the Holy Spirit pendant at maximum output until breaking down from excessive pain and exhaustion. Getting the rights to this bandage would immediately enhance his combat capability. The only issue was that the bandage's real owner was still alive. If it was like the things Jerry got from predecessors, those anomalous objects had changed hands many times and could be used once seized. Yet the plague-infected blood band was different. This anomalous object was created by the female prisoner and her investigator husband, born from their anguish-filled lives. As its creators, they held the highest level of authority over it. So without the female prisoner's consent, even holding this bandage would make it unusable, and Leon must find a way to gain her approval to truly own it. Otherwise, he'd have to wait like the director of Red Brick Road Hospital did for her execution due to the assassination to send the corpse and bandage together to HQ and have a craftsman reforge it. Considering his massive contribution to the Ryan Blood Night, it was evidently better to negotiate directly with the female prisoner for her agreement. After all, without telling her, he nearly wiped out the entire Ryan family. Merely recounting how he took down Bobby Lane might soften her stance to hand over the anomalous object rights. Or maybe hint a bit. Why hasn't he spoken? After not hearing a peep from him while going upstairs, the female cop couldn't help but glance back to find Leon lost in thought. She then furtively glanced at him again. This troublemaking rebel seemed a bit preoccupied. Though the misunderstanding had long been cleared, knowing Leon hadn't truly joined the rebels, his past encounters led to his overly radical demeanor. However, partially from habit and partially because Leon's attitude was far more radical than typical rebels, the nickname stayed. And the absent-minded troublemaking rebel's silence fueled the female cop's wild imaginations. Could he be thinking about those jokes from before? About winding something around his waist, or whatever? Upon reaching this thought, the female cop immediately felt the gaze behind her grow hotter, her nerves slightly tensed, and her long legs clamped more tightly. Feeling stared at, the stares felt awkwardly misstep with each move. Her strange steps snapped Leon out of figuring out how to gain the female prisoner's approval. Seeing the female cop in front suddenly slow down and inexplicably squeeze her legs tight, with her gait looking odd, Leon recalled their previous talk and regarded her back with a sympathetic gaze. Sitting in a chair for over 10 hours a day. That's hemorrhoids to experience, not express, huh? Unaware that Leon had developed a new misunderstanding about him, the female police officer felt a prickling sensation on her back as she quickly walked up the stairs and swiftly entered the chief inspector's office, rapidly explaining Leon's purpose. This might be a bit inconvenient. After hearing the female police officer's words, the scar-faced strong man put down the map of the capital city in his hand and said with a troubled expression, "Your Purification Bureau has always had the highest authority in the entire police department. If it were just questioning the rebels, I certainly wouldn't refuse. But you request the entire interrogation process to be confidential, with no written record, and also not allowing anyone else to know. That's a bit much. That prisoner, although not the mastermind, was still involved in the assassination of the princess. If I agree to let you contact her privately, I can't very well explain it to the higher-ups." Putting it that way, indeed it was true. After hearing the explanation from the scar-faced strong man, Leon couldn't help but frown as well. Involving a major case like the assassination of the princess, the Secret Investigation Bureau indeed couldn't open the back door for him. But according to his own chief inspector, matters concerning anomalous objects were best kept strictly confidential, with as few people as possible aware. After all, in this rather idealistic world, knowing and believing themselves were forms of power. The more people who knew about the Purification Bureau and the anomalous existence, the stronger the anomalies would become within the jurisdiction. If he truly followed the normal interrogation process, with people from the Secret Investigation Bureau accompanying and making written records throughout the entire process, the anomaly density within the Virgin Sanitation Bureau's jurisdiction would definitely rise slightly, which was something that had to be avoided. But judging from the other party's attitude, "Chief, it's one thing to use this excuse to brush off others, but how could you try to fool the person I brought as well?" Just as Leon was pondering how to persuade the scar-faced strong man, the female police officer beside him spoke up unfriendly. "Ever since the old chief inspector completely retired a while back, it's been entirely up to you inside the Secret Investigation Bureau. And now the Minister of Security who controls our police department is distantly related to you by marriage. No one can really make things difficult for you. Moreover, the cabinet, the parliament, the prime minister are all focused on tearing into the Ryan family. As for the assassination case of the princess, even the princess herself doesn't currently have the time to deal with it. Who do you need to report to above us? Having his excuse exposed in front of his capable subordinate, the scar-faced strong man felt a bit embarrassed. After glancing at the strange-looking Leon, he coughed awkwardly and said, "Cough? Though that may be true, I haven't been in charge for long and it's not good to act too recklessly. One must first." "Oh, stop it. You're just afraid of taking responsibility." Rolling her eyes at the scar-faced strong man, the female police officer, who knew her leader's character quite well, snorted. "With such strong work ability and decent skills, yet you flinch at any sign of trouble, unwilling to step up even for insignificant matters. Give me the warrant." "All right, it's yours." After being scolded by the female police officer, the scar-faced strong man didn't even get angry. Instead, he directly handed over the chief inspector's warrant and, with a stern look on his rugged, scarred face, said deeply, "If anything really goes wrong in the end, don't you pin it on me. Just say I stole it. It's a deal." After the female police officer received the warrant and hastily dashed down the stairs with Leon, the scar-faced strong man was silent for a while. Then he took out another identical warrant from the drawer, got up, and quickly left his office. With the warrant from the chief inspector of the Secret Investigation Bureau, Leon and his companion naturally passed through smoothly. Apart from necessary registrations, they encountered almost no obstruction and made their way to the dungeon of the Secret Investigation Bureau, successfully seeing their target. "You speak to her first. I'll stand guard outside for you." After glancing at the rather haggard female prisoner with bloodshot eyes, the female police officer couldn't help but shake her head, gave a nod to Leon, and left the interrogation room, bringing a small stool to sit outside the door to prevent anyone from disturbing them. However, even with her watching, Leon did not relax his vigilance, but instead pressed his hand against the black goat's horn, using soul vision to repeatedly check his surroundings. After confirming no one was eavesdropping, he sat down on a chair and spoke to the silent female prisoner. "I came to see you this time to tell you some good news." "I know." The female prisoner nodded, and a genuine look of contentment appeared on her somewhat pale face. "Bobby Lane is dead, right? And there's turmoil within the Ryan family. Nearly all of their main members are dead. The Ryan family is finished." "Oh?" Upon hearing this, Leon couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, squinting his eyes slightly as he asked, "Did Isha tell you all this?" "No, that young girl, though naive, is quite well behaved in such matters. She couldn't help but tell me about Bobby Lane's death. But aside from that, she said almost nothing." "Not the female police officer?" Hearing the female prisoner's words, Leon couldn't help but be slightly startled, then frowned and asked, "Then how did you know these things?" "Strictly speaking, I should say I saw them myself." Pointing to Leon's pocket that held the blood-polluted plague belt, the female prisoner smirked. "That night, the bandages left by my husband were wrapped around your wrist. Although you tried to suppress them, as the owner of the bandages, I could still perceive some things happening around. Like wherever you went, people of the Ryan family would die." At this point, a smile finally appeared on the female prisoner's face. With an expression of delight, she rhetorically asked, "I might not be able to directly see what happened, but as long as a small piece of skin came off your body, a member of the Ryan family would suddenly die. So, not all those people were killed by Bobby Lane. At least half of them were done in by you personally, right?" It was careless of him. He hadn't expected that the bandage would have some perceptive abilities. Truly, he thought he was hiding it perfectly, yet even before the main investigators arrived, half of it had already been exposed. Internally warning himself never to underestimate any anomalous object, Leon looked at the female prisoner with furrowed brows and said, "Are you attempting to frame me by saying all this?" "Of course not." The female prisoner shook her head with a smile. "You avenged me. I'm grateful and wouldn't harm you at all. As for whether it's framing, Isn't that clear in your own heart? We people have worked hard for several years and only succeeded in assassinating some middle-level individuals. The commotion you created in one night was more effective than years of our efforts. Slowly finishing these words, the female prisoner, who was handcuffed to the chair, did not continue the topic but instead stared seriously at Leon, with furrowed brows in front of her, and earnestly invited, "Seriously? Are you interested in joining us?" Good grief, I just wanted to return a favor and try to get the usage rights to the anomalous object, but it turns out you're even interested in my people. He reached out to check the female prisoner's soul status. Finding her invitation genuinely sincere, Leon couldn't help but say, "Forget it, I'm really not interested in the rebels. Your ways are just too extreme." After hearing Leon's words, another person in the interrogation room also became speechless. We're too extreme? We've carried out over 200 attacks over the years, and the number of high-ranking officials we've killed doesn't even match the number you knocked off in one night. How dare you call us extreme? After both parties silently sat facing each other, Leon eventually broke the silence first. "Since you already know what happened with the Ryan family, I'll be direct. I'm very interested in that bandage and want to gain your approval to obtain its usage rights." "All right." The female prisoner was slightly taken aback upon hearing this, but did not get angry, nodding instead. "As long as you can get me out, I'll immediately relinquish the usage rights of the bandage and hand it over to you." "That's impossible." Leon shook his head upon hearing this. "Setting aside the charge of attempting to assassinate the princess, Isha showed me some of your files. In the years you've been associated with the rebels, you've participated in numerous attack actions, resulting in at least dozens of innocent deaths. So, are you saying I deserve it?" Hearing Leon's words, the female prisoner's eyes instantly sharpened as she stared coldly at him. "Fine then, if you're going to settle things this way, why not grab the kingdom's noble register and start checking one by one according to the laws enacted by the kingdom? If there's a major noble whose crimes are less severe than mine, I'll bash my head on the spot." "You've misunderstood. I didn't mean to accuse you, and that's also beyond my work's scope." Leon shook his head. "What I'm trying to say is, collectively, your charges already amount to a death sentence, so I don't need to rescue you. I can just wait until you're hanged for those crimes, and I'll still get the ownership of the bandage." After hearing Leon's earnest explanation, the female prisoner's face turned blue with anger. She originally thought Leon would be like the female officer, discussing how once you start harming innocents, the victims become the new perpetrators, and she'd long prepared counterarguments for such claims. She didn't expect the person in front of her to be so shockingly practical, dismissing her questioning without a word, making her feel like she'd just tried to flirt with a blind man. "Then why did you come to me?" Seeing the slightly lean, handsome man in front of her, the female prisoner asked irritably, "If I'm set for a death sentence sooner or later, why don't you just wait for me to die?" "Because that would still take some time." Leon calmly answered, "You're one of the criminals in the attempted assassination of the princess case. You wouldn't die before the case is completely closed, and right now, those who could decide on closing the case are all entangled with the Ryan Blood Knight and probably won't remember you anytime soon, and I don't want to wait that long. So whether I agree or not, it just comes down to whether I can save you some time, correct?" "Correct." Looking at Leon, clearly younger than the female officer, yet having an impervious to reason demeanor, a deep sense of helplessness surged in the female prisoner's heart. After staring at him for a while, she snorted heavily. "I admit you killed Bobby Lane and destroyed the Ryan family, which counts as avenging me, but I'm not someone who repays kindness with kindness. Besides, if you hadn't interfered, I could have taken out the female officer in the carriage back then, broken into the Ryan family, and personally strangled that bastard Bobby Lane." At this point, the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Fixing an angry gaze on Leon, she bellowed, "If you calculate it like this, you're even my enemy. Why should I help you? If you want my bandage, then just patiently wait for me to die." It really isn't that simple. Looks like I'll have to use some tactics. Hearing this, Leon couldn't help but shake his head. Then he asked, "Your daughter is still alive, right?" Seeing the sudden vigilance in the female prisoner's expression, Leon spoke softly. "Although your daughter's file states she's dead, with the cause of death being hunger and illness, whenever you talk about revenge, you haven't really mentioned avenging her, always about my husband, our family's fate, etc. So I figured either in your heart your love for your daughter doesn't surpass your husband's, not even worth a mention, or your daughter's not dead at all, which is why you instinctively leave her out when you speak about revenge. Am I right?" This damned bastard. Knowing it was impossible to hide from Leon's interrogation, the female prisoner gave up on the futile struggle altogether. After glaring sharply at Leon, she straightforwardly nodded and admitted, "You guessed right. My daughter is indeed still alive, but since the day I joined the rebels, I've managed to send her away without even leaving an address. So you can never find her, let alone use her to threaten me. If you join us, I might give you the bandage directly. Otherwise, wait for my death." "Fine. Let's just assume I can't find her." After exchanging a meaningful glance with the determined female prisoner, Leon nodded silently and continued gently, "What about your spy in the Secret Investigation Bureau? Do you think I can find him?" Don't bother denying. You already sold him out the moment I walked in." Taking out the blood-polluted plague belt from his pocket and placing it on the table, Leon stated calmly, "When I first tried to inform you about Bobby Lane's death, you said, 'The Ryan family has fallen into chaos. Nearly all the core members are dead.' Correct." After repeating her words, Leon lightly tapped the blood-stained bandage on the table and said suggestively, "I admit I was forced to eliminate some members of the Ryan family, but even I only found out afterward that most of those I eliminated were core members. So can you tell me how you knew, while being locked up, with only a bandage as your eye, that those who died in the Ryan family were not ordinary members but rather core members? Your flaws are so obvious that even without checking your soul state, I could guess a rough area." Pressing the Yang Jiao with his little finger secretly, Leon calmly watched the female prisoner's soul, which was churning violently. As a significant criminal in the attempted assassination of the princess case, anyone contacting you requires registration, and someone must accompany them. Solo interrogation isn't allowed. Given it's certainly not easy to slip a spy into the Secret Investigation Bureau, to avoid suspicious behavior that would lead to his exposure, the spy wouldn't dare contact you unless he were part of the investigation team himself. Oh, and since he informed you of the Ryan family's situation, his contact time with you was definitely after the Ryan Blood Night, further narrowing the time frame. I peeked at the interrogation registry just before I came in and noticed that you've been interrogated roughly 30 times by 4 teams involving 8 names. Excluding Isha, who couldn't possibly be a spy, the remaining people are. Stop talking. Realizing that the name was on the verge of leaving Leon's lips, the female prisoner, whose mental defenses crumbled completely, screamed, "Shut up! Isn't it the bandage you want? Take it. Take it all." Obtained usable anomalous object, blood-polluted plague belt, heterochromatic badge, materialist soul, crimson. Hidden trait activated. Materialist soul, abnormal crimson, cannot upgrade. Equipped effect. Advancement route. Hidden trait. Badge slot +3. Current slot number 6. Total anomalous objects needed to unlock the next slot 8. Asterisk your contamination value increased asterisk. Current contamination value 2.8. The slot indeed increased by 1, but the number of anomalous objects needed to unlock the next slot actually jumped from 4 to 8. Seeing the explanation on the badge panel, Leon couldn't help but sigh softly. Counting the plague-infected bloodband he just obtained through friendly exchange, he currently possessed 4 anomalous objects in total: a goat head, broom, pendant, and bandage, far from the next slot opening. As for Young Ha, who was sleeping soundly on the goat's head, although he had his own anomalous object panel, he wasn't counted, probably because he was alive and didn't qualify as an anomalous object. Or maybe because he was still a puppy, a child laborer not given a position. The latter seemed more likely. After stroking Young Ha's short fur, which felt particularly good, Leon watched the little worker flip over and continue sleeping soundly, even snoring lightly. He couldn't help but let out a light laugh, then nodded slightly toward the female prisoner who was glaring at him angrily. "Thank you. Thank you, my ass." Seeing Leon politely nod and thank her, the female prisoner, whose bandage had been forcibly taken, wanted to curse him out but worried that angering him might harm her companion who had infiltrated the Secret Investigation Bureau. In the end, she could only grit her teeth and turn her head in silence. Demon, this damn guy, who appeared harmless on the surface, turned into a heart-playing demon once he dropped his disguise. Once I'm out of here, I must tell others not to be fooled by his appearance. This Purification Bureau guy is 10 times more dangerous than he seems. By the way, before leaving, I have a few more questions I'd like to ask you. After glancing at the female prisoner, whose soul was half resentful and half fearful, Leon hesitated for a moment before speaking. If you successfully escape from here, do you still plan to continue being a rebel? What did he mean? What did he mean by that question? As she stared blankly, the female prisoner's soul began to churn despite saying nothing, and Leon shook his head. Although you appear normal, the soul never lies. Your soul harbors a plethora of emotions, yet lacks the fear of death. But if you were truly someone unafraid of death, when I pointed out you had a mole in the Secret Investigation Bureau, your fear of death temporarily surfaced. So I believe the mole in the Secret Investigation Bureau must have promised to rescue you, which is why your potential rescue was directly tied to whether he was exposed. That's why you would rather hand over the bandage to silence me, right? Facing Leon, who took less than 5 minutes to strip away all her secrets, the female prisoner felt a chill in her heart and plunged into deep despair. Right? It's all right. Knowing there was no point in lying before this devil who could discern people's hearts, the female prisoner, resigning herself to her fate, glared at him and said through gritted teeth, "Bobby Lane may be dead, but my husband's vengeance is not over. It wasn't just the brain-dead nobles of the Ryan family that killed him, but this kingdom that is rotten to its core. Since my revenge isn't over, if I manage to escape, of course, I'll continue being a rebel. And I'll do it until I die." Okay, I understand. After seeing the female prisoner's extremely sincere soul, Leon couldn't help but shake his head again, and then said with a slight apology, "Sorry, once I get out, I'll immediately take down that spy." You! Hearing Leon's words, the female prisoner couldn't help but shout in shock and anger. "You just took my stuff. Damn it. You tricked me?" "Well, I didn't promise not to capture him. I only promised to stay silent. In the words of our chief, this is called separating different issues." After thickening his skin and saying this rather shameless line, Leon couldn't help but feel his face heat up, then said somewhat embarrassedly, "Sorry if your attacks only targeted officials. I might not have done this, but every time you launch an attack, countless ordinary people are caught in the crossfire, and I can't turn a blind eye. Moreover, both you and that director of the Secret Investigation Bureau have shown significant interest in me, with him even harboring great hostility towards me. Considering the way you rebels conduct your business, there's a substantial likelihood you'll target my family, so I must prepare in advance. By the way, just to be safe, I need to confirm that Scarface director is indeed the spy you planted in the Secret Investigation Bureau, right?" "I don't know." Hearing Leon's inquiry and knowing he was about to start his mind-reading performance again, the female prisoner desperately struggled, wanting to bash her head unconscious. But as the prime suspect in the assassination of the princess, she was firmly strapped to the chair, unable to make any significant moves, only causing the chains around her to clatter noisily. "Seems I guessed right." Gleaning the answer via soul vision, Leon continued asking amid the female prisoner's furious glares. "Next question. Does he possess anomalous objects?" "I don't know." "So he does have anomalous objects. Is he weaker or stronger than you?" "I don't know." "Is he somewhat stronger than you? Do you know what his ability is?" Is it that she genuinely doesn't know this time? After attempting questions from different angles without extracting more intelligence, Leon sighed, then stood up from his seat. Thank you for your cooperation. Goodbye. You're despicable. Shameless. Seeing Leon's shameless trickery, taking away her bandage rights, the female prisoner couldn't help but struggle frantically, roaring hysterically. Stop pretending to be a good person, saying you can't turn a blind eye. You're just stronger than me. Would you dare face the truly strong ones? If you truly think you're a good guy, go take out all those garbage. I'm disgusted looking at you. You're nothing but a hypocritical bastard. Hearing the female prisoner's expletive-laden rant, Leon paused in his steps out of the interrogation room. After considering for a moment, he nodded. You're right. In her somewhat confused demeanor, Leon sighed again, candidly admitting, and I'm not only hypocritical but cowardly. While disliking many things, I lack the courage to risk everything and change them. I'm not only cowardly but also awkward, often unable to completely look away, interfering with things I have no business with. I'm not only awkward but also reckless, knowing that taking action brings trouble and puts me in danger, yet frequently unable to restrain myself. I'm indeed rather unsuccessful. Sometimes I even quite detest myself. Faced with Leon's sincere self-analysis, listening to his self-assessment even more harsh than her own words, the female prisoner couldn't help but be utterly bewildered. Then you. I'm just an ordinary person and only do what I can. As for the rest, after glancing at the panel, shining with its array of badges, Leon's right hand tightened slightly, a trace of imperfect determination in his eyes. That will depend on how high I can eventually climb. Leon. Seeing Leon coming out with his things in less than 10 minutes after entering, the female police officer on duty at the door couldn't help but be slightly taken aback and asked in surprise, Did you finish asking your questions? Yeah. Leon nodded and said, I didn't have many questions to ask, so it didn't take long. By the way, about your Secret Investigation Bureau's chief. Does he have anything strange about him? Huh? Why did he suddenly ask this? After hearing Leon's question, the female police officer hesitated slightly, then spoke. Strange. Does personality count? He doesn't like to take on responsibilities, but when push comes to shove, he's quite reliable. That's not what I'm asking. Leon shook his head and said, By strange, I mean something more unusual, like being physically exceptional or completing seemingly impossible tasks. Well, nothing particularly special like that. After thinking for a moment, the female police officer shook her head. If I had to say something, it's that the chief is very skilled in combat, almost as good as I am. His shooting scores are also impressive, and he's very adept at capturing. No, that's not right. Hearing this, Leon couldn't help but shake his head. These all sounded within the normal person range and weren't related to anomalous objects. The scar-faced brute's ability likely wasn't among these traits. Thinking about it, it made sense. The Purification Bureau was just at the corner of the police department, merely a few buildings away from the Secret Investigation Bureau. Although their chief's perception ability didn't seem very strong, if the other side had used an anomalous object at such close range, their chief would surely have caught it already. Seeing Leon with furrowed brows, clearly pondering something, the female police officer couldn't help but ask curiously, What did you talk about inside? Why did you suddenly ask about the chief? Leon hesitated slightly, then directly divulged, Because your chief is a traitor. Traitor might not be entirely accurate. He might not have betrayed the Secret Investigation Bureau. He was probably a spy who infiltrated from the start. Stingy. Glancing at Leon's fake serious face and recalling how he insisted on interrogating the prisoner alone, refusing any observers, the female police officer wrinkled her nose. Forget it if you don't want to talk. I won't chase you for answers. Why tease me with such jokes? I wasn't teasing you. Your chief really is a spy. Aha! Seeing Leon still joking with her, The female police officer cooperated by making a face expressing, "Wow, really?" Then grudgingly said, "Let's go. Since you're done with your business, we should return the spy's hand order. If we take too long, why are you pulling me?" Watching Leon's exceptionally serious expression as he held her arm, the female police officer finally came to her senses, her expression changing repeatedly, then speaking in shock. "You mean the chief really is?" "Yes." Nodding to confirm the answer, Leon led the female police officer quickly outside. Upon reaching the registration place, he showed her the name on the list and explained what he could, though the explanation was a bit far-fetched due to being unable to reveal the existence of anomalous objects. However, the female police officer had witnessed Leon's performance firsthand. She knew he had monster-like interrogation skills. After hesitating repeatedly, she reluctantly believed his explanation and mumbled with a complex look, No wonder the rebels seem to have eyes in the sky, always avoiding our sieges in the past 2 years, with only the chief barely able to catch their tails. So you've been playing cat and mouse for years." Finishing the second half of the thought for her, Leon advised, "It's fine if you know about this yourself, but don't act rashly. Your chief has some unique qualities. The Secret Investigation Bureau can't handle this alone. For safety's sake, I'm planning to return to the Purification Bureau to get help. You should wait here for now." As he spoke, seeing the dazed expression on the female police officer's face, as if she had taken a big hit, Leon paused slightly and promptly changed his tone. "Forget it, you should come with me. All right?" Having been a secret police officer for several years, constantly fighting the disruptive rebels, discovering her own chief was a rebel was too much of a shock for the female police officer. Her brain essentially malfunctioned, and when Leon grabbed her hand, she subconsciously followed. Yet when they entered the stairwell one after the other, climbing several flights of stairs to leave the dungeon, they both froze in place. For no other reason than, when they pushed open the door of the stairwell and stepped out, it wasn't the spacious and bright first-floor lobby of the Secret Investigation Bureau that appeared, but a dim and narrow corridor. The registration desk was not far to their right, and Leon even saw their signatures left moments ago. Okay, there was no need to guess this time. The Scarface chief's ability was probably this. How is this possible? Somewhat understanding what had happened, Leon was contemplating how he'd exposed himself. Meanwhile, this was the female police officer's first encounter with an abnormal activity, leaving her completely stunned by the situation. After rushing into the stairwell with Leon, only to find the registration desk once more, she was utterly bewildered by this situation. What on earth is going on? Why are there so many identical dungeons? It's not that there are many identical dungeons, but a single dungeon infinitely repeating. Pointing at the registration desk, Leon rubbed his forehead and said, "Before we went up the second time, I folded the bottom right corner of the registration form. Look, the crease is still here, so we should be seeing the same dungeon." After explaining his initial judgment, Leon picked up the registration form, then actively led the female police officer back into the stairwell. After the two descended a floor, seeing the desk without the registration form, Leon couldn't help but shake his head, slightly disappointed. Confirmed, it's likely not a dungeon that can be infinitely duplicated. It's probably the same dungeon's top and bottom connected. We must be trapped by your chief. The dungeon's top and bottom connected? Barely understanding what Leon meant, the female police officer exclaimed in shock. So, this is the person's unique trait? Yes. Without saying much more, Leon paced from one end of the dungeon to the other and again entered the interrogation room, finding the female prisoner had disappeared. With only the two of them left in the entire dungeon, he blinked thoughtfully. "Hold on to my hand, and step back a bit." After pulling the female police officer over to the wall, Leon pinched the Holy Spirit pendant on his chest, inhaled deeply, and conjured an invisible hand to slam into the dungeon wall. Boom! Accompanied by an invisible explosion, the wall beside them burst open, spewing broken bricks and dust everywhere, revealing a massive hole. Cautiously peeking through and looking outside the hole but not seeing another identical dungeon, just a dirt-filled pit, Leon finally relaxed his frown. Asterisk, I thought it was a great ability. Was this it? Asterisk. Asterisk, how could it be so fast? Asterisk. Just as Leon couldn't find an exit and began a violent demolition, a deeply embedded rebel immediately sensed something abnormal. Feeling the dungeon being continually destroyed amidst the violent tremors, the scar-faced chief's brow tightened instantly. Even though he didn't expect to trap them directly, merely trying to delay things to buy some time for his comrades to retreat, the opponent's swift reaction was a bit unexpected. Upon realizing they couldn't escape directly, they immediately began smashing walls. He hadn't even had time to exit from the Secret Investigation Bureau. What's happening? Sensing his change in expression, the female prisoner whose handcuffs had been removed couldn't help but ask cautiously, could it be that there's movement from the Purification Bureau?
No.
The scar-faced brawny man shook his head, saying, the director of the Virgin branch of the Purification Bureau is incredibly powerful. Even if most of their strength is tied up with guarding the anomalous object, it's not something we can handle. If there's any movement from them, we might as well lay down and wait for death. The problem lies with the guy in the dungeon. He's causing crazy damage in the real dungeon right now. When he completely tears apart the real dungeon, the replica I created won't hold up. How is that possible? Upon hearing the scar-faced brawny man's words, before the female prisoner could speak, another young man next to them looked astonished and said, I twisted the stairs directly together both up and down. A normal person should have tried climbing for a while. Not even half a minute has passed, and he's already started smashing walls. I don't know what's happening, but now is not the time to ponder these things. Quickly passing through the empty hall of the Secret Investigation Bureau, he reached the window and glanced towards the Purification Bureau's direction. After a slight hesitation, the scar-faced chief spoke directly to the two companions. You two leave first, take all the intelligence I've collected back. I'll stay. Barton. Hearing his words, the young man couldn't help but anxiously say, you can't stay here. It's so close to the Virgin branch. Even if our ability shows barely any fluctuation, it could easily alert them. If that woman makes a move, you're done for. It's all right. I was prepared to sacrifice myself when taking on this undercover mission. Plus, it's not a sudden decision to stay. After hearing Samantha talk about that person's ability a few days ago, I already planned on this. Taking out a token, prying open its case for the two companions to see, the scar-faced brawny man calmly explained, like this one, in the token given to Isha, there's also one of my ears hidden. Just while he was interrogating Samantha, I was eavesdropping from upstairs. Samantha, you've experienced his interrogation twice firsthand. You should understand how terrifying that newbie's ability at the Virgin branch is. Whether you talk or not doesn't hinder him from getting the answers to his questions. That ability is extremely dangerous to us. No one can keep secrets from him. If he starts assisting Isha in investigating the rebels, then none of us can escape. Eventually, we'll be completely captured. So that person must die. Indeed, I think just like Barton. After listening to the scar-faced chief, the female prisoner couldn't help but clench her fists slightly and then nod in agreement with fear in her eyes. That person is really like a demon, and I don't just mean his manipulation techniques. It's also the feeling he gives people. Honestly, when I look at him, I sometimes hallucinate as if sharp devilish horns grow out of his head. If we can take him down early, then paying some cost would be worth it. But surely it doesn't have to be Barton staying behind. Seeing the other two agreeing on this life-for-a-life solution, the young man said urgently, we're in the dark, and he's in the light. There will definitely be other opportunities to take him down, like trying to frame him, or kidnapping his family, or even staging an ambush assassination. No, those may not necessarily solve him. The scar-faced brawny man pondered for a moment, then shook his head saying, although after hearing Samantha's words, I thought of dealing with him. Isha suddenly brought him to our doorstep, which indeed caught me off guard. And just the moment I decided to take this chance to kill him, he raised his head and glanced at me. So if I'm not mistaken, this person's ability consumption is very low, allowing it to stay activated all day. If someone harbors intense animosity towards him, he immediately notices and prepares in advance. Wait a minute? Upon hearing this, the female prisoner couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Are you saying that before he came downstairs, he sensed your hostility towards him? Doesn't that mean? You're not wrong, that's indeed the situation, the scar-faced brawny man said helplessly upon hearing her words. Before interrogating you, he probably had some guesses. After he and Isha entered the dungeon, repeatedly seeing my name on the registration, he probably had a sense of my identity, which is why he tricked your anomalous object out of you. But it's not a total loss. Seeing the face of the female prisoner filled with regret and remorse, the scar-faced brawny man sought to console her. Even though he figured me out, I also realized he knew I was a spy, so I made my move before they even entered the dungeon, which gave me this direct opportunity to take him down. At this point, the scar-faced brawny man spoke with firm eyes. So listen to me. You two leave immediately. The ability I bestowed on you is minimal, but it's enough to avoid people on the road, getting you out of the municipal area. The young man hesitated. And you? Go quickly. Let's go, at the very least, we must get Barton's intelligence back. Sigh! Under the repeated persuasion of the two seniors, the young man stomped his foot vigorously, then picked up the female prisoner, and without a backward glance, he ran out of the deserted hall of the Secret Investigation Bureau. It was daytime, and there were quite a few people coming and going on the surrounding streets. But strangely, everyone seemed oblivious to the two of them. Everywhere they passed, the people around would suddenly vanish one by one. When they left, the people reappeared somewhere slightly farther from where they disappeared, as if in a different world from them. Go ahead, go ahead. As long as the intelligence reaches its destination, years of undercover work wouldn't be in vain. Standing at the entrance of the Secret Investigation Bureau, looking at the retreating backs of his two companions, the scar-faced brawny man couldn't help but raise his hand, touch the scar tracing from his face to his ear, then smile with some peace of mind, and turn to walk towards the stairwell. At least it's 1 for 2. Not a bad trade. Also, since I didn't expect to make it back, I might as well make a bigger scene. Someone was coming downstairs. Hearing footsteps from the stairwell, Leon, who had destroyed more than half of the dungeon, immediately stopped and pulled the policewoman back. He then pressed against the black goat's horns. Director! Seeing the scar-faced burly man emerging from the stairwell, the policewoman, despite being prepared, couldn't help an inexplicable wave of bitterness from washing over her heart. Her chief might have been a bit cowardly, always habitually retreating in the face of trouble, unwilling to engage in any trouble at all, but he was actually a pretty decent person. Working together at the Secret Investigation Bureau for several years, they had partnered on nearly 100 missions, even facing several life-and-death crises together. In her heart, he was almost as close as an elder uncle or family relative. But who knew that the director was actually a rebel infiltrating the Secret Investigation Bureau, and those experiences in the past were all fake. Even the crises she encountered might have been orchestrated by him. Isha, looking at the policewoman with a complex expression, probably remembering the past years, the scar-faced burly man's expression softened slightly. He sighed and said, "Since it's come to this point, I won't say much more. I actually don't dislike you. It's just unfortunate you're the daughter of the Minister of Defense, and ultimately not one of us. The more someone like you works hard, the deeper the kingdom will slip into the abyss. So I'm sorry, today not only he will die here, but you as well." After hearing the scar-faced burly man's words, the policewoman gritted her teeth but didn't engage his comment, instead speaking with full of anger. Aunt Marcia was located by the rebels last year, and on the way to pick up her daughter from school, she was kidnapped. Her body was finally thrown into the garbage dump on Bridge Street. Was this? It wasn't me, but it was indeed my information that was sent back. The scar-faced, burly man sighed and said, Marcia was a good person, but she was responsible for coordinating with the royal family's honor guard and was the only one who knew the travel routes of the princess and prime minister. Thus, I had no choice but to report her address back. And not only her, out of the 40 or so people who died in the Bureau over the years, probably about a third were because I leaked the intelligence, leading them to be blown up or taken away, including some of your friends and acquaintances. I'm sorry. Not all of them were scum that deserved to die. But sometimes people just have to go against their heart and do something. Bang! Well, since that's the case, let's stop talking. Touching the bloody hole in his forehead, and looking at the policewoman in front maintaining a shooting stance with a face full of shock. The scar-faced burly man couldn't help shaking his head and looked sideways at Leon blocking in front of the policewoman. Isha shot me. Why won't you make a move? I've been to Ryan Manor. You should possess a terrifyingly powerful anomalous object. Glancing at the scar-faced burly man whose forehead had been shot through but was still alive and kicking, Leon judged that this guy wasn't the type to easily reveal his ability, so he chose to ignore his question and continued searching for his true body's location. The moment he heard the footsteps, Leon, who had remained vigilant, used the sole vision of the black goat to examine the situation. Although the scar-faced burly man had a body in front of them, there was no soul inside, just a strange empty shell. Even more bizarre, in the black goat's vision, the entire world had no change, and the souls of the Secret Investigation Bureau's people were all normal, as if the loud noise made when dismantling the dungeon did not exist at all. As for the souls of other prisoners and guards in the dungeon, they remained in those empty cells. Even in front of him, a soul of a guard quietly drifted by, but in reality, there was nothing there at all. It was like they weren't on the same layer. While Leon continued to ponder the true nature of the scar-faced burly man's ability, the policewoman, unwilling to relent, gritted her teeth and emptied the clip, firing 6 nails simultaneously. The scar-faced burly man, having made no effort to dodge the policewoman's skilled American-style Iaido, had his face turned into a gory mess, the kind of wreck that would be heavily censored for television. But he still didn't die, even attempting to open his mouth to say something. It was only after the policewoman replaced the gas canister and shot him in the throat again did he finally lie down obediently. It seems you're really not going to make a move. Along with steady footsteps, another scar-faced burly man walked out of the stairwell, kicked aside the body on the ground, and stood once more in front of Leon and the policewoman. Seeing Leon merely glance at him before frowning again in thought, the new scar-faced burly man shook his head with a somewhat helpless expression. You are cautious. Very well, the scar-faced burly man said as he released the buckle on his tactical belt, completing the entire sequence of drawing a gun, disabling the safety, and aiming in less than 0.5 seconds. The muzzle aimed directly at Leon's forehead. Yet, although he was quick, he still wasn't faster than the policewoman, who always maintained a shooting stance. Probably having realized headshots were ineffective, the policewoman changed her target this time, directly shooting the scar-faced burly man in the wrist, preventing his shot at Leon ahead of time. GUH! Looking at his wrist bone that was directly pierced, the scar-faced burly man glanced at the policewoman with some displeasure, appearing quite unhappy with her interference. Yet, the next second, his throat took another shot, and he could only fall backward with a thud. What a hassle! With a slight murmur of dissatisfaction, 2 scar-faced burly men simultaneously came out of the stairwell, then immediately drew guns from a distance. Bang, 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 bang. Unable to be bothered with wondering why there were so many directors, the gritted-teeth policewoman raised her gun and fired consecutively, narrowly managing to shoot down both directors before they could open fire. However, following that, a series of uniformly paced footsteps resounded again as over a dozen scar-faced burly men walked out from the stairwell one after another, uniformly unlocking their waist clips. What the hell are these things? Seeing the directors raising their guns in unison from a distance, the policewoman with tingling scalp kicked open a nearby interrogation room door, preparing to pull scared stiff Leon inside for cover. Yet this time it was obvious the scarred directors were one step ahead. Just as the policewoman grabbed Leon's shoulder, before she could push him into the interrogation room, those black-muzzled guns had already been raised to the proper angle. Bang, 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 bang. Numerous triggers were constantly pulled, synthesizing into a deafening loud bang, followed by a torrential downpour of gunfire echoing throughout the narrow, dim corridor of the dungeon. Finally willing to make a move? Looking at the nails scattered across the corridor and the blood streaming from Leon's hand, the dozen or so scar-faced chiefs couldn't help but pull back their lips, revealing a rather peculiar smile. It seems different from probing a soul. If you want to launch such an invisible attack or defense, there is a cost, and that cost is the skin on your body, right? Leon glanced at him upon hearing this, still remaining silent, while the scar-faced chief continued on his own. After the Ryan Blood Night, I went to investigate the Ryan family estate, and even took a look at your injuries while you were unconscious. Aside from those inexplicably committing suicide, many of the corpses' cause of death was the destruction of vital points by some kind of invisible force, and you, lying unconscious at the entrance of the estate, had large patches of missing skin. This situation basically aligns with my hypothesis. Watching Leon in the distance remain unresponsive, the scar-faced chiefs shook their heads, then while reloading their nail guns, slowly said, "Even if you don't admit it, it's useless." The usage rules of that offensive anomalous object in your hands were basically exposed after being used at the Ryan family estate. The person who gave me this ability once said that in battles between anomalies, intelligence and strategy can sometimes be more important than strength. No matter how powerful the ability, once the intelligence is understood by others, a way to counter it will certainly be found. As luck would have it, your type with a long-range, high-burst but also high-cost is perfectly countered by my ability. I don't even need to do much. As long as I keep forcing you to use your ability, you will directly kill yourself. Am I wrong? Looking at the scar-faced brute seemingly taunting right in front of him but actually probing with words, Leon pondered for a moment, then silently released the black goat's horn with his other hand. The ability of the War Cornerstone only worked on things with a soul, but these dozen or so scar-faced brutes were empty shells, naturally immune to the black goat's insight. What was more bothersome was that the real entity wasn't in the dungeon. He couldn't leave the dungeon, and the power of the Holy Spirit pendant couldn't be sent out, unable to directly kill his real entity. Other anomalous objects likewise had no use. So the current situation, indeed as the other party said, he was basically on death's door. Forced to keep using the Holy Spirit pendant to block bullets, slowly depleting his flesh and stamina. Leon, get into the interrogation room to hide. Although she couldn't understand the two's unscientific way of battling, seeing that Leon hadn't spoken to refute, the policewoman faintly understood that the scar-faced chief might be right. If it dragged on any longer, Leon might be exhausted to death. Seeing the scar-faced brutes at the other end of the corridor reload nails and start changing their gas tanks, preparing for another round of shooting, she couldn't help but urge, "Go! As long as we block the door, if he can't demolish the walls, at most one or two can come in at a time. We might as well stall a bit longer." Wait, can't demolish the walls? Leon was slightly stunned upon hearing this, then immediately activated the Holy Spirit pendant, exchanging another small piece of skin, killing all the scar-faced brutes at the other end of the corridor, then turned and asked, "Do you have any high-power explosives in the Secret Investigation Bureau?" "Huh? Yes. Whenever we capture the rebels, we usually confiscate some and then destroy them regularly. The latest batch should still be there. So there are." Pushing aside the bodies of the fallen scar-faced brutes, blocking the entrance to the stairwell tightly, Leon's face finally showed a slight smile. Judging from those dozen or so empty shell bodies, the scar-faced brutes abnormal seemed to have a capacity for mass duplication. And the guns those copies held, whether in form or wear, were completely identical, so they likely weren't limited to living things. Even dead objects could be duplicated. Then, given that he could duplicate firearms, why not directly duplicate explosives? If he really wanted to wear him down, compared to shooting little by little with a gun, it was clearly more convenient and effective to throw explosives directly into the dungeon. But instead, he took the long way around, willing to spend great effort to create a dozen empty shells with guns little by little, rather than just copying a bunch of explosives to throw into the dungeon. Excluding him being a fool who didn't think it could be done, the most likely reason was to minimize destruction, fearing that throwing too many explosives would destroy the dungeon. And what the enemy least wanted to happen was exactly what he should do now, with the policewoman's reminder. He vaguely found a possible way to break the predicament, and Leon pulled her into a corner, then took a deep breath, clutching the Holy Spirit pendant tightly on his chest. Boom! A violent crash sounded, and the wall closest to them was completely smashed, turning into a pile of shattered bricks and stones. And this was just the beginning. At the cost of Leon's deal, the invisible heavy hammer formed by the Holy Spirit pendant swept through everything destroyable in the dungeon like a speeding heavy truck. Amidst the deafening roars, not only the previous interrogation room, but also a dozen temporary prison cells were successively dismantled by the heavy hammer condensed by the Holy Spirit pendant. The entire dungeon was covered with dust and debris, turning the once narrow and cramped corridor instantly into a vast expanse. It seemed as if something below had detected the abnormality. The hollow corpse blocking the stairwell was blasted open in a burst of explosions, as if someone was trying to clear a path with explosives. But before the new scar-faced henchman could rush in, the last few walls inside the dungeon had already been dismantled. 2 of the supporting pillars were broken, and the southwest corner where miscellaneous items and tools were piled had even collapsed entirely. Ah! Where did the wall go? What's going on? It's gonna collapse. Run! At the moment the corner of the dungeon caved in, something finally broke. Souls that had originally existed only in the realm of soul vision reappeared in front of Leon and his companion. Indeed, I was right from the beginning. Dismantling the dungeon was the way out. Glancing at the scar-faced henchman who suddenly vanished at the end of the corridor, Leon sighed in relief, then used the witch's broom to stir up a gale, sweeping the dust from the dungeon out towards the stairwell, toppling over the panicked secret police and prisoners alike. Take them over there to stay. Pointing at the few still standing support pillars he hadn't taken down, Leon instructed the female officer to bring everyone in the dungeon over there, then clutched the Holy Spirit pendant and dashed towards the stairwell. As expected, with the dungeon mostly dismantled, the originally endless loop stairwell returned to normal. Upon ascending the stairs, instead of facing another collapsed dungeon, Leon found the empty first-floor lobby of the Secret Investigation Bureau. Is it the same as the dungeon before? Glancing at the empty first-floor lobby, Leon frowned slightly. Just as he was about to test if he could continue upward, he suddenly heard a warning from the Black Goat. Watch out! Heedful of the warning, Leon's expression sharpened, and he immediately summoned the Holy Spirit pendant, forming an invisible, solid barrier around himself. In the next moment, more than 50 nails struck it densely, only to be bounced back by the pendant's power. In the once empty lobby, armed scar-faced henchmen materialized out of thin air. These fiercely cold-eyed duplicates weren't just firing from a distance. Some even abandoned their guns, leaping directly at Leon in a suicidal charge. Is this all there is to it? Watching the scar-faced henchmen charging at him but stopped a meter away by the Holy Spirit pendant, Leon shook his head slightly. Choosing not to tangle with them further, he continued to head upstairs. Besides their stealth, so effective that even soul vision couldn't detect any abnormalities, their abilities offered almost no direct combat prowess. No wonder they'd been sent undercover. The real nuisance was never these dummies and firearms created by him, but rather that bizarre ability connecting the stair landings, keeping Leon from leaving. But that ability seemingly couldn't exist alone. Once the supportive medium was destroyed, the strange distortion vanished completely. Even if the area between the first and second floors got twisted again, it wouldn't matter. At worst, it would mean dismantling the building once more. After getting a good gauge of the opponent's ability, Leon wouldn't be trapped again. And Leon wasn't the only one aware of this fact. As Leon activated his shield, enduring the fire of dozens of firearms while beginning to ascend, the faces of the scar-faced henchmen showed signs of despair. Consequently, They put down their guns one by one and began to vanish. Upon reaching the 5th floor, stepping out of the stairwell, everything around him had returned to normal, transformed back into the slightly noisy Secret Investigation Bureau. To the left, in the large conference room, several secret police appeared to be in a meeting, with intense arguing ringing out intermittently. To the right lay a semi-open office area where 2 employees struggled pushing carts, navigating between desks, distributing stacks of documents, sweating profusely. Further in was the office the female officer had once accompanied him to visit. The director's office plaque on the door remained unchanged, and even the person inside was the same as before. The only difference was that the soul flame, once brimming with hostility and murderous intent, now appeared calm and despairing, quietly awaiting his arrival. Have they given up? Observing the state of the soul flame, finding no indication of suicidal madness, only regret, reluctance, and a hint of resignation, Leon furrowed his brow slightly, then proceeded to push open the door. Congratulations, you won. Watching Leon enter through the doorway, the scar-faced man surprisingly smiled, then calmly invited, "Care to chat with me? Before I die, I have quite a few questions to ask you. I imagine you do too. However, please slow down your speech a bit because your ability is truly terrifying. I don't want to betray my comrades. If you suddenly ask something I'm unwilling to disclose, I'll end my own life immediately, and our conversation will cease. Is that acceptable?" Noting the state of the man's soul and realizing he genuinely seemed to have a means to end his life instantly, Leon opted not to immediately restrain him but instead nodded. "All right, then one question each, but I ask first." "Okay. The spatial distortion-like ability shouldn't be yours, so you surely have other accomplices. My question is, how much of my related intelligence did he take with him when he escaped with the bandaged woman?" Is that really one question? Upon hearing Leon's first question, the scar-faced man grumbled with extreme frustration. "Don't think I don't know that you can observe others' soul states and glean answers from their reactions. That single phrase of yours appeared declarative at the outset but was actually a series of questions in disguise. You first asked if the distortion ability was mine, then confirmed whether I had accomplices and further questioned whether they escaped together, and if intelligence was taken during the escape, ultimately asking how much intelligence regarding you was taken. You crammed 5 questions into that single sentence. That's not fair. If you think it's unfair, you can choose not to answer. But not answering means I lose out, right?" Watching the expressionless Leon before him, the scar-faced director clicked his tongue in frustration. If I kill myself now, I get nothing. But by answering his question, I can ask one in return. So it's either exchange 1 question for 5, or concede having lost 4 questions in value. Clearly, exchanging 1 for 5 is better. Not much was taken, just some speculations about your abilities and basic information the Bureau could find. Beyond that, nothing much. They took mainly other intelligence this time. Information about you was merely collateral. After answering Leon's question, the scar-faced director took a deep breath and asked, "My first question is, what exactly is on the upper floors of your Purification Bureau?" "Don't ask." Interrupting his question, Leon gripped the Holy Spirit pendant, staring intently at him. "Sorry, I won't answer any of your questions. If you wish to end yourself, go ahead." "Ha!" The scar-faced man's mouth opened in astonishment at Leon's words. His face shifted rapidly from anger to confusion, then bewilderment, finally settling into outright puzzlement. "Are you playing tricks? Yet given your ability to see through souls, exchanging questions like this clearly benefits you. Besides, I've prepared to end my life already. Even if I know the intelligence, I can't take it back. Why do this? I can tell you that at least." After a moment's thought, Leon replied, "A senior who helped me a great deal once told me, no matter how advantageous it may seem, never trade intelligence with an enemy capable of threatening you unless they're truly dead. You're only prepared to end your life, not truly dead yet. Moreover, I don't know your accomplice's abilities. What if they have a special ability allowing them to extract intelligence from the dead? So until you are truly dead, I won't disclose anything. And consider that me answering one of your questions, right? By our agreement, does this mean I get to ask again? Asterisk, screw you. I'm about to die. Asterisk. Faced with Leon, who was not only cautious but also quite shameless, the scar-faced director, who had been mooched for 5 questions, angrily made a rather obscene gesture at him. Then, his soul suddenly split into 2, becoming 2 identical dark flames that collided, entangled, and strangled each other before abruptly extinguishing with a pop. Simultaneously, his body slumped onto the table. Although the scar-faced burly man's breathing and heartbeat were still normal, Leon knew very well that his soul was no longer there, and all that remained was a soulless shell. Asterisk, was his method of suicide actually soul eradication? I really couldn't have stopped that. Asterisk. Looking at the burly man slumped over the table, Leon shook his head and then carefully activated the Holy Spirit pendant. He cautiously prodded the man's body and, after confirming there wasn't anything that would explode on contact, slowly moved closer and started searching. Since he didn't know what the vessel of the man's anomalous object was, Leon had to rely on his hands to meticulously inspect the burly man's belongings, checking not only the pockets of his clothes and pants but also any place that might have had pockets sewn hiddenly. However, although he did find some small items, they were all things like ink pens, notebooks, and handkerchiefs, with no items that belonged to the anomalous range in sight. So, was his ability somewhat like the director's love without memory, carried within himself rather than attached to an object? After frowning and pondering for a while, Leon began to directly touch the burly man's body, and unsurprisingly, once he touched the man's skin, the materialist soul finally started to flicker. Encounter, materialism, information, name, counterfeit workshop, replicate, replace, appearance, ability. After setting a small area as a workshop, it can replicate all non-anomalous objects within range, forcibly replacing the original items. The replaced items will temporarily be transferred to another world. Due to the previous user's soul being shattered, the third ability is currently undetectable and requires repair or reconstruction for further use. Cost? File. One of the numerous functional anomalous objects created by the Aquarius director in the Purification Bureau to fulfill a wish, temporarily numbered 0116. Due to the previous user suffering from shameless deception before dying, a large number of resentful soul fragments have been retained. Therefore, it has poor affinity with those untrustworthy or individuals named Leon Lane. Evaluation. A quite excellent ability. Although the upper limit is not high, its concealment is extremely strong, allowing it to perform remarkably well in certain special situations. After submission to the Purification Bureau and proper handling, an impressive anomalous object can be extracted. Although it has a poor affinity with you, someone might be interested in it. Contamination value? Asterisk, alright. It seems similar to the Golden Toad for Wealth Exchange, where both suffer damage due to soul fragmentation, but the extent is not too bad, at least the ability can still be discerned. Asterisk. After reading the intelligence provided by the materialist soul, Leon slightly shook his head and then reached into a shopping bag to pet Young Ha's forehead. Do me a favor, and put him into the mirror first. Woof woo. Young Ha, having received the order, wobbly stood on the black goat's head, leaned over the edge of the shopping bag to glance at the burly man, then barked at the office window. The next moment, the real-world burly man instantly vanished, but his reflection leaning over the table in the window became significantly more profound. Following Young Ha's somewhat chaotic instructions, Leon took out a small mirror and waved it at the window, transferring the burly man into the portable mirror. Afterward, he patted the exhausted Young Ha, stood up, and left the Secret Investigation Bureau Director's office without alerting anyone, heading back toward the stairwell. After the ability of the burly man was lifted, the Secret Investigation Bureau, which had been isolated on another layer, returned to normal, and the situation in the collapsed dungeon finally drew the attention of the people in the hall. Quick! There are still 2 injured down there. Get them out. Fast. Call for a vehicle. Someone got hurt by the collapse. That's too slow. Just use the Bureau's official car. Seeing 6 or 7 dusty, injured people, Leon, having just descended to the first floor, instinctively took out the plague-infected blood bandage, intending to heal them. However, after glancing at the chaos in the hall, he ultimately gave up on the idea, instead wrapping the bandage back around his hand. It's not that I'm lacking the energy to treat them. It's just that there are too many people right now, making it unsuitable to use an anomalous object. It might be better to apply to the Bureau later, see if the medical expenses can be covered, and try to get some compensation. If the Bureau won't cover it, it's fine to deduct it from my own salary, given that the dungeon collapse was my doing. As Leon thought about this while using soul vision to check the condition of the injured again, confirming all were lightly injured, he was slightly relieved and then walked over to a policewoman in the corner of the hall. How is it? The policewoman, who had been keeping an eye on the stairwell and had already spotted Leon, limped towards him with a complex expression and asked, "Someone noticed the situation in the dungeon. The Bureau seems to have suddenly returned to normal, so I brought them up. The director, that person, did you take care of him?" Leon nodded and said, "In order to avoid me asking more questions, he committed suicide directly. I couldn't stop him." Committed suicide. The female police officer heard this, bit her lip, and her eyes showed a tinge of sadness. But ultimately, she said hatefully, "He got off easy. Aunt Marcia was such a great person. Never got into an argument with anyone for so many years in the Bureau, and this bastard actually had the heart to kill her and those other people too. Where did that bastard die?" "In the office upstairs. But I took the body away, so there's nothing up there now." "Right." After answering the female officer's question, Leon thought for a moment and then suggested, "How about not saying he was a rebel? If anyone asks, just say the rebels attacked your secret investigation bureau's dungeon, not only rescuing the prisoners but also kidnapping the director and taking away a lot of confidential intelligence." The female officer was slightly taken aback when she heard this. Why say that? No matter how thorough he was, if I really put my mind to it, I could definitely find out, and by then, I get it. After glancing up at Leon, the female officer thoughtfully nodded and said, "Anyway, that bastard is dead. So Aunt Marcia and the others have been avenged. And saying the director was kidnapped sounds better than saying the director was a rebel who infiltrated the Secret Investigation Bureau. After all, if it truly turned out he was a spy, the entire Secret Investigation Bureau would likely be subject to investigation or even temporarily disbanded and reorganized. And during that chaotic gap, the rebels would certainly take the opportunity to cause havoc, resulting in a lot of casualties. Is that what you're thinking?" Actually, it wasn't. I just wanted to make things a bit difficult for the rebels. The focus of this story isn't on the scar-faced man's identity, but on the rebels taking the chance to steal lots of confidential intelligence. As for the dirt, preferably it's all about the various noble families, officials, and big merchants. Now that the high-level insiders of the Secret Investigation Bureau are gone, and they're suddenly being hit from all sides, they should calm down for a while and not bother me right away. Something like that. Following the female officer's lead, Leon responded ambiguously and then, noticing her slightly awkward stance, suggested, "Did you also get your leg hit? How about going to the hospital to get it treated? I see there's an empty seat in their car." "No need. I'll go back and put some medicine on it myself. But your hand, where's the wound on your hand?" Grabbing Leon's left palm, she examined the newly grown skin, and the female officer exclaimed in surprise, It was clearly quite serious just now. How did it heal just by wrapping it with some bandages?" By the way, how did you do it before?" Now that things had settled, the female officer, who had been holding back a belly full of questions, finally got her chance to ask. She quickly tugged on Leon's sleeve, leaned in, and whispered, "Why was he able to come back to life even after dying? And why could he transform into over a dozen? And how did you do it?" Why could you withstand so many nails? Why did the dungeon collapse as soon as you pulled me into the corner? And, I still have unfinished work. Hearing the female officer's string of whys, Leon couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He then made an excuse. I see you're quite busy here too. So how about we each focus on our own tasks first? I'll explain everything tomorrow after I'm done. Okay? All right? Unaware that by tomorrow, the brain of the evil god at the Purification Bureau would wipe clean all memories related to abnormals. The female officer received Leon's promise and, after only a brief hesitation, let him go, then seriously reminded him, I'll be waiting for you tomorrow in my office. Make sure to come find me after you're done. No lying. I promise, I promise. After making a promise as unreliable as next time, for sure, Leon quickly gathered his things and left the chaotic Secret Investigation Bureau. But instead of heading straight back to the Purification Bureau to report, he walked toward the main road outside the municipal area, intending to catch a public carriage. Asterisk, the simple reason is that the scar-faced man was not exactly a formidable opponent. From the time I left the Purification Bureau to now, not even an hour had passed, and I had already taken care of him. Asterisk. Asterisk, if I came back after a field assignment in just over half an hour and only 600 or 700 meters away, even the director might be embarrassed to approve my subsidy. I might as well go to Rose Manor to rescue someone first. Asterisk. Asterisk, damn. I missed the carriage, so now I have to wait for over half an hour. If I had known, I might as well have headed back to the bureau first. Asterisk. After jogging to the nearby station, watching the public carriage just disappear from view, Leon couldn't help but rub his brows in frustration, feeling his luck had indeed been poor lately. Asterisk, his sister was hospitalized, encountering an out-of-control infector. Investigating, a middle-aged nurse almost got him cut in half by an old man. During a visit to the shopping mall, he unexpectedly came across the holy spirit of the Scales Gold sect. Just wanting a bandage, he ended up being targeted by the rebels and trapped in the dungeon. Asterisk. Even though everything ended without any major incidents and he pulled through successfully, it truly felt like he was cursed, bringing trouble wherever he went. What's up? Perhaps sensing Leon's hesitation and confusion through his soul vision, the black goat shook its head curiously and asked, Weren't those rebels all dealt with? What nonsense are you pondering now? It's not really a big deal. After a brief hesitation, Leon expressed his suspicion. I'm wondering if the frequency at which I encounter abnormals is a bit too high. Why does something happen everywhere I go? Like I'm possessed by Conan. Which demon god is Conan? He's not a demon god, he's a... Forget it, not worth mentioning. What I mean is, ever since I joined the Purification Bureau, every time I try to do something proactive, it seems like some unexpected situation occurs. Am I under some curse of bad luck from an anomalous object? Nonsense. After hearing Leon's suspicion, the black goat snorted and said, Though you have potential, you're only a third-class cleanser at the Purification Bureau right now. The Bureau has tons like you. Who would specifically target you with a malefic anomalous object? Instead of using an anomalous object to ruin your luck, wouldn't it be easier to just get rid of you? But it really feels like I'm particularly unlucky. It's not that you're unlucky, but because you work for the Purification Bureau now, you're forced to seek out anomalous objects, so naturally, the frequency of encountering them has increased, and almost being cut down by that old man is exactly due to that. After casting a disdainful glance at the superstitious Leon, the great demon confidently stated, The incident at Red Brick Road Hospital, whether you joined the Purification Bureau or not, would have definitely erupted that day. And as for the holy spirit of the Scales Gold sect, as soon as Charles Department Store started selling a lot of goods, those random nobles would definitely stir up trouble. You just happened to be in the right place at the right time. That is true. A bit convinced by the black goat, Leon thought for a moment, but then shook his head and said, Even if those events were bound to happen sooner or later, what difference does it make whether I'm there or not? Why do I always end up being in just the right place? What do you mean by just in the right place? It's because the things you encountered in the past are impacting what's happening now, so it seems like things keep going wrong for you. For example, that Scarface guy today, he probably had his eye on you for some time. If you hadn't gone to the Secret Investigation Bureau, he probably wouldn't have dared to act rashly. But seeing you walk right into his trap, he couldn't help himself. Can that be called just in time? Indeed, if I hadn't gone to the Secret Investigation Bureau, that Scarface director probably wouldn't have dared to cause trouble, likely continuing to stay undercover. After listening to the Black Goat, Leon realized it probably was the case. Still, for some reason, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. And seeing his soul fire still flickering uncertainly, the Black Goat impatiently said, "How about this? You're planning to go to Rose Manor to rescue someone, right? Let's see if you can smoothly bring her out. If everything goes well, then you were just overthinking it. But if something goes wrong again, we can find a way to check things out for you. How about that? If things go wrong again this time, should I check if my luck is off?" After hearing the Black Goat's suggestion, Leon thought it over and nodded in agreement. The Bureau had received the anomalous object sent by Old Charles, so they had Jerry keep an eye on the person involved. This mission to rescue someone from Rose Manor should be as easy as going downstairs to pick up a package. Sneak in, grab the person, return, and hand in the task. That's the entire procedure. If everything went smoothly with the mission, there would be nothing more to say. But if even something this simple ended up having issues, then it would prove he had an easy mission body, and he should seriously consider checking it out. Makes sense, let's go. Agreeing to the suggestion made by the Black Goat, Leon decided not to wait for the public carriage anymore. After counting the money in his wallet, he gritted his teeth and waved down a taxi carriage waiting by the roadside. "Passenger, where are you headed? Redwood Avenue, are you going there?" "Sure. Definitely going." When the coachman saw Leon's dust-covered old coat, he hesitated a bit, worried Leon would dirty the cushions in the carriage. But when he heard Leon was planning to cross half the capital city from the old town directly to Redwood Avenue, his face broke into a grin. Why worry about dirtying the cushions? Can always be cleaned. After finishing this ride for such a big client, he could relax for the rest of the day and have plenty of time to clean the carriage later. Nay. After Leon bent down with his shopping bag and climbed into the carriage, accompanied by the neighing of the horse and the creaking of the boiler valves, the small carriage that could hold at most 2 people set off eagerly. The coachman, who had just received a big order, was evidently in a good mood, half leaning against the small window at the front of the carriage, and initiated a friendly conversation. "Passenger, a lot of people on Redwood Avenue." Hearing the somewhat familiar opening from the coachman, Leon in the carriage shivered involuntarily, and the Black Goat seemed to remember something as well, shivering almost simultaneously. Oh my God, if I remember correctly, when this kid ran into the toad from the Scales Gold sect, wasn't the coachman on the road saying the exact same thing? Could it be? My cousin is a public carriage ticket inspector. After completing her first run this morning, she told me that some important personage had gone missing. Over there on Redwood Street, it's packed with people right now. After sharing this piece of fresh gossip he just heard, the coachman glanced in the rearview mirror, noticing Leon's expression was a bit stiff, and suddenly paused. This big client seems like someone who doesn't enjoy chatting? Perhaps I should stop talking, lest he change his car in the middle of the ride. Just as the coachman was about to cease the conversation, Leon, having realized something, asked with a slightly odd expression, "The important person you mentioned who went missing, is it from the Ryan family?" Yes, from the Ryan family." Seeing the big client finally engage, the coachman relaxed and, with a broad smile, said, "Have you seen the newspapers these days? The Ryan family, those gentlemen lost over 200 people overnight, and they're all that kind of, scumbags who do nothing good." "Exactly. All the dead ones were scumbags who did no good." "Haha, you're right on point." Seeing that Leon seemed to associate himself with ordinary folk and given his worn-out clothes and the dust from when the dungeon collapsed, Not at all resembling someone who could be related to high nobility, the coachman felt completely at ease, launching into a tirade against the Ryan family. Anyway, that damn family lost a lot of people overnight. Even the first heir was killed. Although the old Duke of Lionheart is still alive, he probably got frightened and will not last many days. According to the Sun News, that old rascal picked another little rascal to succeed the Ryan family just before he died. But that little rascal vanished before sunrise today, only leaving a note saying he'd be back in a few days. The Ryan family and their in-law nobles are going crazy looking for that little rascal. If anyone can provide information, once confirmed, they'll give 5 gold wheels directly. After hearing the coachman's words, Leon, the little rascal, couldn't help but scowl and decided to change cars after the street to avoid more insults and maybe save some fare when the meter resets. However, though he'd been insulted for no reason, realizing the trouble was with the Ryan family and not his target, the Marzini family, Leon felt quite relieved. Asterisk for now, everything still seems stable. As long as I sneak into Rose Manor, grab the target and leave, nothing should go wrong. Right, asterisk. The Ryan family wants to connect with me to reach the Scales Gold Sect, to buy the whereabouts of the new Duke with money. After hearing the butler's report, the elder with a rose emblem embroidered on his chest set down the financial report and frowned. Ignore them. The Scales Gold Sect doesn't take this kind of job, and there's no one left in the Ryan family who can make decisions, especially after Thomas, who signed the contract on behalf of Bobby Lane, died. Our 3-family alliance is essentially dissolved. Refuse any such matters in the future, and don't bother me with them. Yes, I've noted it. Hearing the elder's instructions, the butler, holding a bunch of letters in his left hand, nodded quickly in agreement, tossing a letter with a lion emblem into the nearby wastepaper basket, then opened the next letter and briefly glanced over it before reporting. The next one is from Lord Simon. After you kidnapped old Charles' only daughter, Charles Department Store has been quiet for a few days. But recently they've started dumping their stocks at a low price again, and it appears they've shifted their inventory, focusing on discounting products that Rose Department Store mainly sells. Lord Simon wants to know how much longer it will take to deal with old Charles. If this continues, even if we swallow the Ryan family shares, Rose Department Store will suffer severe losses. He's about to give up and withdraw his investment. Hold on, you must. Slightly annoyed, the elder replied upon hearing the butler's words. When we discovered the benefits, everyone fought tooth and nail to gain a share. Now, realizing there could be losses, they all want to back out. How can there be such an easy out? Tell him to stick it out for me. What's wrong? Speak. Lord Simon. He might really be at his limit. Extracting the report sandwiched in the letter and handing it cautiously to the elder, the butler carefully said, I've just briefly reviewed it. If no one continues to invest, based on Rose Department Store's financial condition, it can sustain itself for at most 15 days. If it goes any longer, I'm afraid not just Lord Simon, but even some within our family, including some of your in-laws, might not be able to resist pulling their investments. 15 days. Looking at the stark deficit in the report, the elder's eyebrows twitched rapidly, his expression shifting uncertainly. It seemed as if he wanted to get angry, but ultimately, he slumped back into his chair helplessly. Fetch the Ryan family's letter from the trash and see how much they are willing to offer. No wonder you were once the kingdom's twin pillars. You really know how to name a price. After reviewing the offer sheet handed to her, the middle-aged woman in a brown robe chuckled and said to the old man with a rose emblem on his chest, Earl Sam, if you don't mind, could you tell me how much the Ryan family paid you to help deliver this letter? Well, haha. Never mind if you don't want to say. I was just asking casually. Looking at the embarrassed old man, the woman in the brown robe smiled and said, Being able to draw money from the Ryan family is your own skill. Our Scales Gold Sect doctrine doesn't oppose such matters. It even encourages them. But without my help, you wouldn't have earned this money, so as the crucial link, I request to share a portion of your earnings. Do you agree? I agree, of course I agree. Cursing inwardly about her greed, and realizing he didn't hold the upper hand. The old man named Sam nodded repeatedly while gritting his teeth, handing over a new offer. Seeing the satisfied expression finally appearing in the eyes of the woman in the brown robe, the old man, despite feeling pained, secretly breathed a sigh of relief, then bowed slightly, saying respectfully, "Your Excellency Bishop, the people from the Ryan family are right outside. If now is convenient for you." "Convenient, of course. Convenient." Mimicking the old man's tone, the woman in the brown robe, who looked to be around 40, laughed heartily and said, "It's just helping to find someone, and I can earn such a generous income. How could it not be convenient? Let's go. Take me to meet the guests of the Ryan family." "Sure, this way, please." Leading the woman in the brown robe through the corridors of the estate, they arrived at a rather secluded reception room, and facing those who hurriedly stood up to greet her, the old man from the Rose family took the initiative to introduce both parties. "Your Excellency Bishop, these are the last remaining elders of the Ryan family, the new head of the Ryan family, and the most trusted butler of the late Duke. Everyone, this is a bishop from the wealth-attracting branch of the Scales Gold sect. You can call her. No need for names. Just call me Brown." Interrupting the old man's introduction, the middle-aged woman in the brown robe stepped forward quickly, shook hands with the few people, and then said with a pleasant smile, "I heard from Earl Sam that you contacted our Scales Gold sect because the designated heir of the Ryan family has gone missing, and you want me to find his whereabouts, correct?" "Yes, yes." Hearing the inquiry of the woman in the brown robe, the youngest among the three, the new head of the family, nodded eagerly with his head full of golden hair and said with slight excitement, "Brown, Your Excellency Bishop, to be honest, we have no choice now. In just over 2 days, the rite of succession will take place, and the invitations have already been sent out, but the heir designated by the late Duke ran off from the hospital this morning. Truth be told, if you can find him for us within 2 days, we're willing to add 50% more to what we've already offered you." Are you crazy? How can you reveal everything at the first meeting?" Hearing the young man's words, the other 2 members of the Ryan family were shocked, then looked at him with surprise and anger, their eyes filled with indignation and blame. The young man seemed to realize it too, hastily covering his mouth and saying with a panicked expression, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't. Haha. Don't blame him, please. The head of the family didn't mean to say these things. I personally don't like deception, so I used some little tricks earlier, hoping to make our communication more honest." After briefly explaining what she had done, seeing the growing apprehension in the eyes of the 3 from the Ryan family, the woman in the brown robe smiled nonchalantly and suggested, "As for the extra 50%, let's forget about that. The gifts you offered earlier are already quite generous. Although our Scales Gold sect loves wealth, we are not insatiable, and taking only what we deserve is enough." Seeing the noticeable relief on their faces at not needing to add more, the woman in the brown robe slightly curled her lips and added, "However, even though I'm quite confident in finding the new Duke, our method might be somewhat unconventional. I'm wondering if you all can accept it." "Somewhat unconventional?" Hearing the woman's words, the 3 from the Ryan family exchanged glances before the eldest elder asked, "Brown, may I ask what you mean by unconventional?" "Joining our Scales Gold sect is required, but not for you, instead for the new Duke of the Ryan family." With a slight smirk, the woman in the brown robe displayed a rather peculiar grin, like a large brown cat that had spotted a plump rat. "I serve the cat spirit, one of the 3 holy spirits. Anyone who has used money or even slightly engaged with it cannot escape its detection and summoning. Thus, finding the new Duke's location is very simple. If the cat spirit is willing, it can even bring him directly to you, even if he has already left the capital city. The rite of succession in 2 days won't be delayed. However, as the cost, after being locked on by the cat spirit's power, the new Duke will be influenced by it, carrying the scent of our Scales Gold sect, making it almost impossible to affiliate with another sect. Are you willing to accept this cost? To be forced into the Scales Gold sect? Never able to join another sect?" After hearing the woman's words, The three from the Ryan family once again exchanged meaningful glances. Let him join then. It's just a puppet duke anyway, as long as he can appear at the rite of succession 2 days from now and stabilize the situation for the Ryan family. It doesn't matter what sect he joins, even if he comes back missing an arm or a leg. However, what if the Scales Gold sect has ulterior motives? The family was eager for the rite of succession to at least retain some of the Ryan family's assets. And if not, they hoped to capitalize on the Duke of Lionheart's reputation for their kin. If the new Duke joined the Scales Gold sect, there would be another contender for the title. What if the Scales Gold sect secretly joined the fray, vying for the Ryan family's inheritance? Your Excellency Bishop, please first locate his position. After some intense eye exchanges, the Ryan family finally reached a consensus. The old Duke's butler bowed slightly and said, "If the new Duke hasn't gone far and is just hiding temporarily, we can find him ourselves. But if he has left the capital city, we'll trouble you to bring him back. All right then, please give me something he has used." Unconcerned with the Ryan family's little schemes, she accepted 2 bandages still sticky with ointment from the old butler, sniffed them, her dark brown lips moving slightly, silently chanting 2 lines. Suddenly, a lazy cat's meow resounded in the reception room. The pupils in the woman's eyes quickly contracted and seemed to slice sideways as if slashed, her eyeballs swelling rapidly, transforming into bizarre cat's eyes. "I see him," after blinking uncomfortably, seeing the trail extending from the bandages. The woman whose eyes had expanded threefold laughed and said, "The trail is strong. It seems the Duke didn't run far. Let me check his surroundings." He carried something, climbed over a wall, and jumped into a large patch of red roses. Not far away is a 6-story magenta building. Wait, isn't that building a bit familiar? Not bad, so far. Everything is smooth. Struggling slightly as he emerged from the rose bushes, Leon looked at the magenta 6-story building not far away. Having successfully infiltrated Rose Manor, he couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. Although Redwood Avenue was chaotic, with people searching for his whereabouts everywhere, with the sole vision from the Black Goat, he merely took a slightly roundabout route and successfully avoided them. The sentries at Rose Manor were the same. Although the guards of the Marseille family were fairly diligent, he opened the full map cheat. Once the patrols left, he simply walked through the woods for a bit, climbed over 2 walls, and entered the heart of Rose Manor. According to Lady Lisa's directions, all he needed to do next was to bypass the magenta main building in the courtyard and enter the 4-story low-rise on the east wing of the manor to successfully rescue those inside. Huh? Seeing the soul vision filled with a disorderly crowd of souls, Leon frowned slightly. But before he could react, the alarm bells in the manor were rung by someone. 2 glaring xenon lamps were lit up, shining like giant spotlights in a dance floor, beginning to sweep wildly towards the southwest corner of the Rose Garden. It was daytime. Looking at the 2 bright lights obviously aimed at him, Leon's expression darkened a bit. If the Marseille family didn't customarily hold parties during the day, then it meant his infiltration had been discovered. Moreover, it seemed he was utterly exposed, with the opposition even pinpointing his approximate location. "This way. Follow the lights. Spread out. Keep formation. Don't let him escape." Hearing the increasing clamor and seeing the souls swiftly approaching in his soul vision, Leon, whose infiltration had failed, immediately began plotting his next move. If he retreated, his current position was in the heart of Rose Manor, and the guards were all advancing towards the point of light. If he turned back to retreat, not only would he have to run a significant distance, but he'd also likely crash into the thickest circle of envelopment. And the straight-line distance between him and the target was only 300 or 400 meters. At his maximum speed, that distance could be covered in just slightly over half a minute. So he could completely choose to continue moving forward, passing through the main building, rescuing the hostage by breaking the wall, and then leaving from the other side of the manor. This way, he could both complete the mission and avoid the swarming guards. No time to waste. Charge. Taking a second to assess the current situation, Leon made a split-second decision to continue forward, sprinting out of the Rose Garden towards the main building. After just a few breaths, he reached the bottom of the main building. Bang! Blasting the window open with the help of the Holy Spirit pendant, Leon smoothly flipped through the window thanks to the parkour badge's enhancement. He entered what was probably the kitchen, and, under the shocked gazes of several chefs, he barreled out of the kitchen door, dashed through a hallway, and stormed into the first-floor foyer. What's happening? What the heck? What are you doing? Ow! Ignoring the disturbed individuals, Leon maintained his high speed as he sprinted through the foyer, kicking over a tall old man with a purple-black soul. Without stopping, he charged into the opposite hallway, burst into what was likely a servant's lounge, and amidst the screams of several young maids, broke out through another window. In about 10 seconds flat, Leon barreled through the main building, continuing on to the low-rise in the east wing. Simultaneously, he gripped the Holy Spirit pendant tightly. Boom! With an intense blast, the wall on the second floor of the east wing low-rise exploded. The woman inside, who had been attempting to pick a lock, let out a terrified scream as Leon swooped in and slung her over his shoulder. He then charged out of the room. Ah! Boom! Don't! Boom! I'm going to die! Boom! Amidst the woman's screams on his shoulder, Leon tore through 4 walls, leaping off the other side of the low-rise into the surrounding woods of the manor. He only needed to run another 700 or 800 meters to reach the outer fence of Rose Manor. Perfect. Carrying the woman forward a bit longer, completely ditching all pursuers, Leon finally allowed a faint smile as he eyed the nearby fence of the manor. He had done it. Despite some hiccups along the way, he had managed to escape unscathed. Next, he only needed to return Charles Department Store's young lady, and his mission would be complete. Wait a minute, Just as Leon took a deep breath and opened the iron fence ahead, the woman on his shoulder finally recovered from the harrowing escape and chase. Though she didn't know Leon's identity, or even what he looked like, since he had rescued her from Rose Manor, he definitely wasn't one of Marseille's men, and was likely someone her father had sent to save her. After catching her breath, suppressing the nausea from being jostled about, the young heiress kidnapped mid-move held her mouth and gently patted Leon's back. Who are you? Right, because of the unexpected events during the operation, the infiltration and rescue had turned into a forced breakout, and there was no time to explain his identity or tell her he was sent by her father. After glancing back toward Rose Manor and confirming that no one would catch up soon, Leon set the thoroughly jostled woman on the ground, helping her balance before answering. I am sent by Yo, huh? Before Leon could finish, the woman in front of him suddenly vanished, replaced by an intimidating woman with large eyes and several incredulous old men. Witnessing Leon's wild dash from upstairs, and finally deciding to ask the brown-robed woman to step in, the few were also caught off guard by his unorthodox introduction, leading both sides into a brief silence due to the unforeseen developments. Shortly after, it was the experienced brown-robed woman who first reacted, smiling towards the promising new Duke of Lionheart in front of her, offering her goodwill. I am the Bishop of the Scales Gold Sex Fortune Branch. You may address me as Bang. While touching the forehead of the black goat to see if these people were good or bad, Leon didn't hesitate for even a second upon hearing the word Scales Gold Sect. Directly activating the Holy Spirit pendant, he blasted her head into pulp like a smashed watermelon. Dying so suddenly, the brown-robed woman's soul hadn't even reacted, still hovering cluelessly in place. A massive question mark floated up from her purple-black soul. It was indeed not that simple, seemingly an ambush. Although unsure of the situation, Leon, having killed the Holy Spirit of the Scales Gold Sect, and long having formed a blood feud with them, swiftly turned his gaze to the remaining members of the Scales Gold Sect, clutching the Holy Spirit pendant tightly again. Asterisk was that it was all over. Asterisk. Seeing Leon glare at the Bishop of the Scales Gold Sect and kill him in an instant, then turning his fierce gaze towards them, the remaining people in the room all shuddered in unison. The old man from the Marcini family was the first to react, immediately dropping to his knees, narrowly avoiding an invisible hand that seemed to reach for his head. Mercy! I barely know her. With his exemplary response, the three from the Ryan family quickly followed suit, falling to their knees one after another, begging for mercy in a chorus. I don't know her either. We had no idea what she was doing. Your Grace. I'm with the old Duke. It had to be said. Anyone who climbed to a high position within the sprawling Ryan family wasn't slow to react. Of the three old men from the Ryan family, each kneeled faster than the last. Once they lowered themselves, their distinctive small golden curls finally caught Leon's eye. Calling me Your Grace. And with that head of golden hair, observing the sparse heads in front of him, and recognizing one as the old Duke's steward, Leon was momentarily taken aback, then instinctively furrowed his brow. Are you really with the Scales Gold sect? No, no. Afraid the three from the Ryan family would sell him out, the old man from the Rose family quickly interjected. We're not with the Scales Gold sect. We just asked her for help to find someone. I'm the Earl of the Rose family. Your Grace. We're related by marriage. Yes, we have nothing to do with the Scales Gold sect. Indeed, we are from the Ryan family. I'm the newly appointed head of the Ryan family, and he is the last patriarch. We are yours, Your Grace. Damn, I shouldn't have asked. Looking at these little, old golden-haired ones, Leon couldn't help but click his tongue in slight annoyance. These three from the Ryan family, since they managed to escape the Ryan Blood Knight without being killed by him using the Heart of Ambition, were clearly not heinous criminals. However, according to the Ryan family's excellent average moral standards, while they weren't outright villains, they certainly weren't good people either. At best, they were bastards with a hint of humanity. Although he wanted to pretend he hadn't asked and let them shuffle off, the suspicion of causing the Ryan Blood Knight loomed over him. Plus, the director's repeated warnings before departure made Leon set aside the tempting idea, asking with a grim expression, So, we're still in Rose Manor? Was it that bishop from the Scales Gold sect who brought me back? Yes, it was all her doing. Seeing that Leon seemed to give up on getting physical, the few old men in the room let out a sigh of relief, then scrambled to pin the blame on the headless corpse on the ground. You left a note and vanished. We just wanted to bring you back. It was all her idea. Right. She wanted to lure you into the Scales Gold sect and brought you over with that cat spirit. She surely coveted the Ryan family's assets under your name. From the somewhat confused descriptions of the old men, Leon pieced together the gist of the situation, bewildered. So, after she forcibly brought me over, I have a mark from the Scales Gold sect on me, making me one of them? Well, we don't know, but she certainly said so. Absurd. Even though I'd killed the Holy Spirit of the Scales Gold sect and just took out a high-ranking bishop, I've now directly earned a position as a member of the Scales Gold sect. Shaking his head in disbelief, Leon opened the badge panel and looked at the constantly blinking Holy Spirit badge. Practitioner Silver, having personally slain a large number of evil heretics and spread the fame of the Scales Gold sect around the world. Your efforts are deeply recognized by the followers and holy spirits of the sect. Wearing effect greatly increases affinity with anomalous objects marked as sacred, simultaneously lowering the cost while significantly enhancing the effect. Advancement route: become a bishop of a certain branch of the Scales Gold sect, or preach your understanding of the teachings to 3,000 members and earn their recognition, after which this badge will automatically advance to the Golden Badge Deputy. Progress in preaching the teachings to the congregation 0/3000. Hidden trait: doesn't require wearing due to actively practicing the Scales Gold sect's teachings. Your soul becomes increasingly firm and pure, making it easier to gain favor from certain entities of order. Well, this is a blessing in disguise, saving me quite a bit of trouble. After examining the advancement route of the practitioner badge, Leon frowned again, then squinted at the old man with the rose embroidered on his chest, confidently saying, You lied just now, didn't you? I didn't. You'd best not rush to deny it. Looking at the rose emblem on the old man's chest, Leon spoke. Your Marcini family's collusion with the Scales Gold sect is no secret. That's why, when I vanished, they came to you for help. Am I right? Actually, it wasn't to help. Just then, the old steward cautiously reminded, Your Grace, with regard to finding your whereabouts, Lord Sam demanded a hefty price and said it wasn't his desire. It was the bishop's insistence. I haven't been paid. The money hasn't been paid yet. I don't want anything now. And, not only this time, the money invested in the Rose department store can also be returned to you. Realizing Leon was likely at odds with the Scales Gold sect, after promising to return all the money, the old man from the Rose family wailed, Your Grace, our family truly doesn't collude with the Scales Gold sect. We just have minor collaborations. Please, don't. I want to become a bishop of the Scales Gold sect. Ha! Seeing the old man gape in confusion, eyes full of bewilderment, Leon patiently repeated, Tell me, how can I become a bishop of the Scales Gold sect? Oh? But you just killed their bishop 2 minutes ago. Then the moment you heard you were part of the Scales Gold sect, you immediately switched sides, not only accepting your new identity but also aspiring to become a bishop. Is your adaptability outrageously strong? Watching Leon's earnest expression and realizing this newly appointed Duke of Lionheart wasn't joking but genuinely serious, the old man's dry lips moved twice, finally flustered. Well, the Scales Gold sect has 3 branches. Each branch can have at most 3 bishops simultaneously. To become a bishop, you must first get the joint recommendation of at least 2 bishops from different branches, then participate in 3 congregations to gain the congregation's approval. Too troublesome. Is there a quicker way? Then it's true God's personal designation, or receiving the approval of 2 of the 3 Holy Spirits and being imbued with their aura to be directly acknowledged by the Scales Gold sect followers. I see. After hearing the old man's words, Leon slightly frowned. True God's personal designation is impossible. I directly killed his Holy Spirit. The likelihood of him personally condemning me is higher than appointing me as a bishop. As for Holy Spirit recognition, in that case, let me ask you, after touching the Holy Spirit pendant on his chest, Leon seriously pursued, if I took out a Holy Spirit and crafted it into an accessory wearing it consistently, would it count as being imbued with its aura? Would it be acknowledged? After taking down the Holy Spirit of the Scales Gold sect and wearing it around, would having absorbed enough of its aura be considered gaining the Holy Spirit's approval to become a bishop of the Scales Gold sect? After listening to Leon's question, not only did the old man from the Rose family freeze in place, but even the Ryan family trio felt their brains buzzing with confusion. They understood each word the Duke said, but why did it not make any sense altogether? Say something, will you? After waiting a while without hearing an answer, Leon frowned slightly, looking a bit annoyed as he pressed on. Is this feasible or not? Quickly give me an answer. This. Seeing that this ominous figure was a bit displeased, the old man from the Rose family shuddered violently. But since no one had tried this before, and no one had even thought about it, he really didn't know how to answer. With a mournful face, he said, There's no precedent for this. I truly have no idea. Perhaps you can try it yourself. Try it myself. Is it possible? After contemplating for a moment, Leon nodded slightly and then asked, When is your Scales Gold sect's next gathering? You're really going to try it? Looking at Leon seriously asking about the gathering time, the old man from the Rose family was nearly in tears. At this moment, he wished he could travel back 5 seconds in time and strangle himself alive for suggesting such nonsense. Not to mention anything else, just bringing this person who took out the brown bishop to the gathering was akin to apostasy, and it would definitely invite relentless pursuit. And if this ominous figure succeeded in the end and truly became a bishop of some branch, when the people of the Scales Gold sect reacted, they might even directly invite a Holy Spirit to take him out. But, glancing at the body of the serenely lying woman in the brown robe on the ground, and then looking at the bloodstains on his pants that hadn't dried yet, The old man from the Rose family had to swallow his tears back and obediently revealed the Scales Gold sect's next gathering time. 3 weeks. The Scales Gold sect holds gatherings every 2 months, and the next one is in 3 weeks. Asterisk, choose the lesser of two evils, right? Although apostasy is likely to lead to death, given this person's tendency to explode people's heads upon meeting, refusing him might just have him lying next to the brown bishop in the next second. Asterisk. 3 weeks. Huh? Noting the time in his mind, Leon looked at the old man in front of him with a bitter expression and continued to ask, "Where is the location, and how do I get there?" Well, the Scales Gold sect is a secretive sect, so every gathering is notified temporarily. That's fine. I'll come to find you in 3 weeks. At that time, you can take me there. Is there a problem?
No.
No problem. With the 3-week agreement, made with the old man from the Rose family, Leon turned to look at the 3 old golden retrievers of the Ryan family behind him, frowning. "You all. We won't say a single word." After witnessing Leon's series of actions, the 3 old golden retrievers had completely lost their temper regarding their new duke who possessed some kind of special power, and whose thoughts were clearly different from those of normal people. To avoid the fate of being blown to bits with a single glance, the 3 retrievers pounded their chests to swear that they would say nothing after leaving, each one of their old faces wearing a more affable expression than the last, as if they might grow a wagging tail from behind any second. All right then. After glancing at the obedient Ryan 3 elders, and then at the pale-faced old man from the Rose family, Leon, who was still investigating, shook his head and suppressed the last bit of his intention to act. After wantonly releasing during the Ryan Blood Night, although a large part of his anger had been vented, it seemed as if a new switch had been flipped, and when faced with matters, he began prioritizing striking directly. It seemed the director was right. The more power one possessed, the more they needed to restrain their actions. Asterisk, especially the cleaners with abnormal abilities, as they were constantly subjected to the corrosion of anomalous objects, making them prone to radicalization. If they were to indulge their desires at such a time, they would gradually drift further from being human. Asterisk. And if these extraordinary beings were completely uncontrolled, the world itself would be thrown into chaos even before the evil gods descended. But not indulging doesn't mean doing nothing. With the help of the Black Goat's soul vision, after carefully observing the situation at the Rose Manor and seeing an equally unredeemable number of ink spots, Leon squinted slightly. Let's leave it at that for today. Looking at those dark souls that, although not as numerous as those in the Ryan family, were no less quality, Leon couldn't help but grip the Black Goat's horn tightly and then gave the old man from the Rose family a meaningful glance. "We'll meet in 3 weeks. Ah? All right. I'll see you out now." Seeing this ominous figure finally prepare to leave, the 4 people in the room were greatly relieved. The old man from the Rose family even eagerly followed behind, ready to personally escort Leon out of the manor. "No need to see me out. I can find my own way." Rejecting the old man from the Rose family's offer, Leon checked the task target's location, found it still wandering inside the outer walls of the manor, and simply found a window to climb out of, intending to send the person back home first. And as they swarmed to the window, watching his silhouette disappear into the woodland with their own eyes, the hearts of the 4 old men, which had been held high, finally settled completely back in their chests. The old man from the Rose family, completely relieved, slumped onto the carpet. Arrogant. Grabbing the window frame firmly and steadying his trembling legs, the only remaining elder of the Ryan family was the first to speak. His hair and beard bristling with anger. "Even though he's the new Duke of Lionheart, I'm the only elder left in the family. Even when the old Duke was still around, he never dared to treat me so lightly." "You're absolutely right." After hearing the words of the old family elder, the old butler beside him, his heart pounding like a drum and his face deathly pale, pressed his heart hard and nodded in agreement. "The Duke's character is indeed a bit too extreme. Yes, the way he dares to treat us now, I don't even dare to imagine what will happen once he officially becomes the Duke." After pounding the windowsill fiercely, the head of the Ryan family gritted his teeth and said, We can't let today's incident slide. During the Duke's succession ceremony, we must join forces to teach him a lesson. To let this damn guy know exactly who calls the shots in the Ryan family. Unaware of what had happened after he left, Leon maintained the good habit of seeing tasks through to completion. He once again found the target as shown in his soul vision. When rescuing her earlier, he had run too quickly to take a closer look. But now he realized the daughter of the Charles department store owner looked somewhat familiar from the back. Seeing the woman perched atop the iron railing, struggling yet failing to climb over after several attempts, Leon hesitated briefly before tentatively speaking up. "Miss Amy." "Oh my gosh!" Hearing a voice from behind, alarmed, the woman on the railing quickly lost her footing with her left foot and fell backwards with a scream. "Watch out!" Seeing her headfirst descent, Leon quickly sprinted forward, worried she might hurt herself, and caught her in his arms. After helping the pale-faced, doll-like young woman steady herself, seeing her still shocked demeanor, Leon reassured her. "Don't worry, Miss Amy. The Messini family's issue has been resolved. You're safe now." Mr. Leon." Seeing Leon's face clearly for the first time, Amy was taken aback, and then seemed to realize something. She exclaimed in surprise, "Just now? Was that you? Did you rescue me?" "Yes, it was me." Looking at her familiar doll-like face, Leon was equally surprised. "So you're the daughter of the Charles department store owner?" I am. I'm sorry. I never mentioned it to you before." After timidly answering Leon's question, the doll-like young woman, full of questions herself, couldn't help but ask in confusion, "Just now? How did you suddenly disappear like that? And, did you plant bombs on the wall? Why did the wall explode wherever you went? And also, well, how about waiting until tomorrow? I'm guessing your family is anxious by now. Let me take you home first, and I'll explain tomorrow." Once again offering tomorrow for sure as a response, and unwilling to answer her questions, Leon also had several questions he didn't want to ask. He grabbed the railing, pretending to exert force, then secretly used the power of the Holy Spirit pendant to bend the railing, opening a gap large enough for a person to pass through. He led the doll-faced young woman out by ducking through. Phew. We're finally out. Although it was just another fence, for Amy, who had been confined for several days, it marked a complete escape from the Messini family's domain. After unconsciously letting out a breath, she patted her flat chest and then stealthily glanced at the back of the man, feeling her own heartbeat quicken slightly. First, because of the department store incident, she found a man who seemed just the right fit for a husband. Just as she was about to move next door to him to get better acquainted, she was kidnapped on the way. Then, she was confined in a dim little room for several anxious days, eventually being rescued, and the one who saved her turned out to be the man she had her eye on. Oh dear, this really is, while his rescuing method wasn't carrying me out like a princess, but rather slinging me over his shoulder like a sack, nearly making me throw up, it still counts as a hero saving the damsel, right? Secretly holding his hand a little tighter, feeling the warm, inexplicable sense of security, Amy couldn't help but blush slightly and murmured, "Mr. Leon, thank you for rescuing me. I'll be sure to repay you." "That won't be necessary." Hearing her words, Leon, who was waiting for a carriage by the roadside, shook his head and replied quite honestly, "The reason I came to save you was mainly because your father contacted our department, asking for assistance. Then the chief assigned the task of rescuing you to me. As for the reward, your father has already paid in advance." "I see." The narrative of the hero saving the damsel suddenly shifted to that of a business professional, causing the doll-faced young woman to look crestfallen. The pink bubbles in her mind burst almost completely. However, when Leon mentioned old Charles, her expression immediately turned worried again. She bit her lip and asked with concern, "By the way, during the days I was kidnapped, my parents must have been worried sick. Are they okay now? I haven't seen them, but I assume there aren't any major issues." Leon thought for a moment before responding. After your father approached us, our chief had someone investigate his situation. Your father looked somewhat haggard but was in good spirits. Your mother, on the other hand, worried herself into a mild illness, but nothing too serious. You'll probably find she's fine once you return. As long as they're okay. After inquiring about her parents, the doll-faced young woman felt slightly more at ease. Then she bit her lip again and tentatively invited. Mr. Leon, you've done such a great favor for our family. So, if it's convenient for you, could you come to our home in a couple of days as a guest? I'd really like to express my gratitude. Asterisk in a couple of days. Isn't that Ryan family's inheritance ceremony? Plus, the investigators from the General Bureau will probably arrive tomorrow morning, so definitely not. Asterisk. It doesn't seem convenient. Leon thought for a moment and shook his head. I have something on that day, and probably won't have the time. Besides, you really don't need to thank me. Oh, right, do you have any money on you? Huh? Yes, I do. Hearing Leon's question, the doll-faced young woman quickly rummaged through her things and pulled out a delicate leather wallet from her dress pocket. She then took out a stack of 10 gold will-bearer checks and handed them over, slightly embarrassed. I was kidnapped rather suddenly, so I don't have much money on me. Will this be enough? Never mind. I'll just pretend I didn't ask. Seeing the checks equivalent to half a year's salary for himself, Leon remained silent for a while, then speechlessly pushed them back. He fumbled through his own pocket and found his number of copper wheels insufficient, reluctantly pulled out a silver wheel and handed it to her, then pointed at an approaching steam carriage and instructed, We don't share the same route. When the carriage arrives, just take it home. Remember to stash those checks securely on your way so you don't get kidnapped right after being rescued. Also, the ride from Redwood Avenue to the Charles department store headquarters is just over 9 kilometers. The first 5 kilometers cost 2 copper wheels and the remaining 4 1 copper wheel per kilometer, meaning if you get off half a block early, it'll only cost 6 copper wheels, so never mind. Just give me the money back. In the previous encounters, even though he thought she wasn't a naive heiress, Leon was still significantly shocked by her pulling out a year's worth of his salary. He worried she might actually try to pay for the ride with checks. After handing the silver wheel to the coachman and getting back 3 copper wheels and change, Leon meticulously noted the number on the steam carriage's rear, then felt reassured in seeing the doll-faced young woman off. He then flagged down another coach, got in, and handed the coachman a handful of copper wheels. Number 35, Bridge Street, Happiness Apartment. Snap, snap, snap. Seeing the stout old man in the lobby of Happiness Apartment on the first floor, clutching large scissors and glaring at him, Leon couldn't help but rub his temples in frustration. Asterisk damn. After the Devil's Badge advanced to the gold level, it seemed the demonic aura in my soul became too strong. Before the Holy Spirit Badge caught up to the gold level, I might really have to sleep at the office. Asterisk. Or maybe, looking at the apologetic face of the matronly manager in the lobby, Leon tentatively asked, Aunt Mary, would you mind if I use some techniques to bind your husband for a little while? Mainly because it's been over a week since I last went home, and I really want to check back. Tie him. Despite twisting the stout old man's waist several times without him budging, the matronly manager had to shake her snowy curls helplessly and said, I know you're a good person. Problems with your soul are probably due to the Purification Bureau, and there's no reason to stop you from going home. But my old man's words, he just doesn't listen. Well, as long as you don't hurt him, you can tie him up all night. No, it won't take that long, just a short while. Leon had great respect for these elderlies who had always done good both in life and in death. Hearing this, he promptly refused her suggestion, then slowly invoked the power of the Holy Spirit pendant, forcing the stout old man to stay in place before dashing up the stairs without looking back. Snap! Seeing the damnable little demon actually head upstairs, the stout old man's eyes bulged, and his broad, sturdy back muscles suddenly swelled, forcing the restraint of the Holy Spirit pendant open just a bit, waving his large scissors trying to chase after. However, After only a couple of steps, he was tightly entangled by bundles of threads, forcing him to be tied beside the staircase. His waist, in particular, was fiercely pinched. "You stubborn old man. You were stubborn while alive, and even more stubborn now that you're dead. Stick your neck out a bit. Let me measure the length." Twisting the stout old man's waist hard a couple of times, and seeing her husband still holding the large scissors and trying to rush upward, the matronly manager couldn't help but shake her head helplessly before pulling up a small stool to sit in the hallway, measuring the stout old man's neck to knit a wool scarf. Waiting on the third floor for a while without seeing the stout old man pursuing him, Leon heaved a sigh of relief and immediately dashed up to the 6th floor. "Brother!" The familiar preemptive door opening still applied. At the moment Leon set foot on the 6th floor, the door to the adjacent room swung open suddenly, casting a comforting orange glow, illuminating the dim corridor and Leon. Even though she'd already recognized his footsteps, seeing Leon hurriedly back home with dust still clinging to him, Anna, looking slightly weary, couldn't help but feel a surge of energy. Her eyes showed a sense of relief. But before Leon could say a word, the relief in her eyes transformed into deep worry and grievance. Biting her lower lip hard, the frail girl slightly turned her head, her voice tinged with a teasing reprimand. "Finished with your work?" Not yet." Catching the slight reproach in his sister's eyes, Leon couldn't help but halt his steps, looking at her apologetically, and said, "Sorry, Anna. There's been a lot going on in the bureau lately. I just took some time to come back and see you guys, but I have to leave soon." "Okay." After hearing Leon's words, although she still felt a bit upset about his disappearance for 7 or 8 days without a word, seeing him come home so weary and dusty, the frail girl couldn't help but bite her lip again. Feeling a bit worried, she gently advised, "Remember to take care of yourself, don't shoulder everything alone. If it's really exhausting, you should take more breaks. Earning a bit less is fine too. Now that our home life is much better, and my health has improved a lot compared to before, if both of us can work, earning a bit less can still support Melanie and the others. You don't have to push yourself so much. Don't worry, I'm all right." Looking at his sister in front of him, who was full of concern, Leon instinctively turned up the corners of his mouth, feeling a subtle relief and ease that he hadn't experienced for a long time. Whether it was the ruthless ferocity of just having killed the bishop or the lingering scent of blood from Ryan Blood Knight's aftermath, all washed away when I returned to this warm little home, bathed in that warm glow. In this moment, I was no longer the ruthless cleaner of the Purification Bureau, nor was I the outsider constantly suppressing anger and discontent, out of step with this world. I was just an ordinary person who, after a busy day, longed for quiet rest at home. "Anna, I'm lucky to have you here." A heartfelt sigh escaped him, and having found some slivers of humanity, again, Leon couldn't help but step forward, embracing his sister in a big hug, burying his head in Anna's still thin shoulder, and almost greedily taking a deep breath. Even though it had only been a month since joining the Purification Bureau, looking back, I realized how much I'd changed from the person I was. At least the me from a month ago would never have crushed someone's head at the mere mention of the Scales Gold sect. Though I could console myself, it was all part of the job. I was undeniably stepping further away from normalcy, moving at an increasing pace toward a non-human world. Anna, her slim shoulders seemed frail. Yet just as I supported this family from collapsing, the existence of her and the 2 little ones anchored my perception of being human. If not for them serving as anchor points, while I might not turn into something truly evil, I would, under the constant corrosion from anomalous objects, become like those other cleaners that only had a human exterior, remaining and being unrelated to a human in essence or actions, as the Black Goat had stated. You don't. Suddenly enveloped in Leon's forceful embrace, with his face nuzzling her neck, Anna was startled, instinctively trying to push him away with a flushed face. But after being hugged for a few seconds and seemingly sensing something from the depth of this embrace, she hesitated briefly, then abandoned her struggle. Ignoring the dust on Leon, She wrapped her arms around his waist in return, making their embrace tighter. Resting her chin on Leon's shoulder, the frail girl slightly tilted her head, somewhat embarrassedly nuzzling her cheek against his jaw before enduring the warm, tickling breaths on her neck. As her hands gently stroked Leon's back, her gaze softened, murmuring softly in his ear, "Brother, no matter when you feel tired, just come home. I'll always be waiting for you."